1. Hello, lords and ladies of the internet. It is I, the King of Candor, and welcome back to this episode of COC, the Council of Candor. Today, we're going to be talking about something special. A lot of us here are fans of the original Marvel content, and it's been kind of a mixed bag lately, let's say. So now, we're going to talk about X-Men 97, which surprisingly is pretty good. But we'll get into further details about that in a second, as some of the other hosts are going to be a little late today due to traffic issues. But first, let's go with our beloved
initial thoughts without spoilers. I would say we'll get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
so, yeah folks, everyone knows if you're a loyal listener, I am Pops. As always, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited for this episode. This is one of those things that stirred up a pretty good amount of controversy, drama, a lot of attention. Obviously, we want to try and profit off of that here. So let's have some fun today.
Toss us some shekels. Yep. All right. And then next up is our resident comics expert. And honestly, the man who made me do this podcast, because his enthusiasm for it got me to watch this show, Mr. Astro, Amazing Astronaut.
Yay. Yes, hello, Amazing Astronaut reporting in. I hope everyone here is having a great time and is ready to talk about the show.
Hell yeah.
Definitely. And last, but definitely not least, is our resident author, Mr. Pag. How are you doing today, sir?
I am A-OK. I just finished watching the show 1 minute ago.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Based.
Yeah. All right. So, where do you want to start, Senior King? What's up? What's going down? What's going up?
So, a few things first and foremost. First, we do have to hit a couple other topics before we can just jump right into it.
Yes.
Very basic stuff. The first thing is going to be the Starfinder 2nd Edition is coming out soon, or at least the playtest of it. This is really cool because means that Paizo's having enough success with their current products that they're releasing more of them and upping their games. I liked 1st Edition of Starfinder. It was notoriously broken. For those of you who don't remember 1st Edition of Starfinder, the way that ability scaled, a expert pilot, the best pilot in the game, who rolled a natural 20 on the D20 dice, was about 10 too short to pilot the best ship in the game, which is funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It was literally impossible to fly multiple of the ships and even fire some of the guns. You couldn't get mechanical skills that high. Obviously, they fixed it. But it's nice to hear that they're going forward with Starfinder and they're making it more like their Pathfinder 2nd Edition system. This will be cool because all of you who are fans of 2nd Edition Pathfinder will be able to backwards port into the races and forwards port the races in. What that means is if you want to play a dwarf in space and you own Pathfinder and Starfinder, you can shift between the two of them, which is pretty neat. This is also big because this really shows that Paizo's doing well, and that means that we are winning against Wizards of the Coast. They don't have the stranglehold that they keep claiming they do, and that people are in fact playing other games. So it means the hobby is much healthier. On that same note, I believe this morning I saw some news talking about how they have said that they're going to make the entirety of 6th edition Creative Commons, or 5.5 or whatever they call the edition. They keep making claims like this, but they haven't actually done that yet for all their 5th edition content. They'll keep announcing it, but until they actually do it, don't get excited, guys. That's a little corporate trick. It's I call it the Kathleen Kennedy trick. Whenever there's a problem, you announce 10 new great things everybody wants, and you quietly cancel them one by one. That's why we're getting that Rian Johnson trilogy soon, right, boys?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I call
True.
it the canceling student debt trick. You just keep saying that you're debt.
Exactly.
And then
Keep on kicking that can, right?
Yep. So don't fall for that. Until they
Beware.
actually make a change, until they actually do something, don't listen to Wizards of the Coast. They're very clearly still drinking the Kool-Aid of we're going to keep being correct and trying to correct ourselves politically instead of making content that's worth engaging with. That's why they just removed a whole bunch of words like tribal and Naga. Naga is snake people now. Like, that's clearly a different thing. Naga is an actual
one
like
letter.
mythological creature. Yeah, one letter. But no, Naga is an actual snake creature from mythology. It has backing and it's really cool. And ironically, you're going to remove what would be, in their eyes, some minority culture. You're stamping down their cultural words because you're afraid of them. I hate that stuff. Just bring it as is. It's okay.
That's legitimately a word that, like, historically has been a reference to a snake. Yeah, like even like in Harry Potter, the snake was named Nagini. Like it's not. That's perfectly normal. I don't see what the problem is. Yeah.
We have to make problems because we can't just make content anymore. Hello, Friedricho. So, after that, the only other thing that I can think of is I'm still waiting on a little book announcement to come out, but the author is being a bit of a dweeb. So we're going to forgive him for now, and instead we're going to talk about next week's podcast. Do not forget, next week we're going to be covering a classic of sci-fi, voted on by all of you who are in my server, A Door into Summer by Robert Heinlein, or Robert A. Heinlein if you want.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. We have the audiobook for free posted in the server. Come over and listen to it. You can enjoy it. The book's also very cheap. Multiple people found it for $5, for $6 on Amazon. It's great.
Damn.
Worth your money.
God, that's super cheap.
Yeah.
It's an old classic of science fiction. And I don't want to spoil too much, but I think it's one of the few books that does time travel well. Because it's moving into the future.
Yeah.
That's
the other thing that I saw when reading a little bit about this book, I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't watched it yet, because if I tell you exactly who, you're going to spoil stuff. You will see quickly the people who are inspired by this book. It's one of those things like if you read the Once and Future King like we did a few weeks ago, you'll read it, you're like, oh wow, I very clearly see how everybody was inspired by this book. Every King Arthur, everything is inspired by this directly. Once you read this Heinlein book, you'll start to see how many time travel people reference this story, bring it up in passing, and just slightly hint at it. It's like the Twilight Zone's another thing like that. Tune in next week. We're going to be announcing the next book for that podcast. I look forward to seeing you all there. So, now on to the main show. I just want to say, by the way, hello, Sweetie Cheesy, hello, Legacy, and AJB Productions.
I believe that's Sweaty Cheesy.
Is it? It is. Yes, my bad.
Sweaty Cheesy.
That's my guy.
All right. So, and culture's too risky. Please enjoy your toast with no spread. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yep. Thank you, NNN. But yeah, man, it's Legacy, I'm sorry that you're sick, buddy. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Legacy's also a fellow connoisseur of the industry. He's in my server, and he's a very fun guy to talk to. He's working on his own comic, and he's taking a lot of feedback and advice. We can read the culture books too later. Oh, don't worry, there's going to be plenty of culture books. In fact, I'm just going to say it right now. Chat, you get a little spoiler for the next book. I'm not letting people vote in the next book. Now that we've got the show a little established, I want to read a book that the entirety of a booktube or book talk says is a horrible, bigoted, monstrous work, and even speaking its name is right for being kicked off the platform. We're going to read the first of the Thomas Covenant series.
Oh.
He has, how do we put this? Special relationship with a single woman who does not like the relationship. And apparently this makes it horrible for the book, and we can't even come back from it. I want to cover it though.
The Culture series is it's a book about a spacefaring nation called The Culture.
Really?
It's not one of my favorites, but it is a classic of science fiction. It's like up there with Foundation. It's one of the like foundational pieces of science fiction out there.
Okay.
It's not one of my favorites, but it's something that we should read if we're interested in getting down the classics of different genres.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I really feel like the fact that we don't read the classics anymore is why all content feels the same. And this is something that I don't want to plug people bigger than me. You guys know them. Robert Meyer Burnett and Drinker and all those guys, whenever you listen to the industry talks, they talk about this. They understand that you cannot write content that's good and fresh anymore because you're simply writing content for content that you're referencing. The only people who are writing Star Wars these days grew up watching Star Wars. They didn't grow up watching or reading any other sci-fi. So they can only copy Star Wars stories for Star Wars, which leads to this incestual clone of itself that does not function, which is why Star Wars just keeps falling apart these days. Whereas if you go out and got somebody who read like original sci-fi content, or actually, Literature Devil Legacy's right there. Respect the Pulps. He's right. Literature Devil's another fantastic channel for that. He says, go back and read the old stuff. Even if you hate the old stuff, go back, read it, and figure out why you hate it. Because you can take that terrible story and readapt it. One of my least favorite films of all time is the third Mummy movie. That film gets everything completely fucking wrong about the Mummy series. And that was the thing that turned me on into basically wanting to tell stories. Because after seeing that, I got so upset because the first Mummy film is one of my favorites. I sat there and I wrote on like 2 or 3 pages of paper changes I would make that make the film flow so much better. I remember showing my dad this when I was about 8 or 9, in 8th or 9th grade, and he was excited about it. He said, wow, that's pretty good. You should write stories one day. And that's what set me on this path to storytelling and working on fantasy and sci-fi. So fix the old stories. Imagine if somebody took that idea and brought it into Star Wars. You could easily do that. It's just so fascinating to me that people have this wealth of stories. We live in a society where it's easy to get stories. Project Gutenberg is free online. There are hundreds of great books that are just free. There are people who have free audiobooks on YouTube. You can listen to almost all of Michael Crichton's books on YouTube. They're awesome. I did Jurassic Park 1 and 2 that way, about a year or so ago, and it was just such a joy to hear how he wrote the original stuff. And yeah, it's different for the movies, but now that you can compare the movie to the book, you can really get a contrasting idea and see why Spielberg made the changes he did. And it helps you understand both way deeper.
Absolutely. So, Jurassic Park, I read that thing. Less than 3 days, just cranked it out. That was great
so
book.
Good.
Interesting. And cranking it out. I think Star Wars is good example for what you're saying, because it doesn't even have to be inspired by like a spacefaring story or a sci-fi story. Like the fact that Luke goes on like the classic kind of hero's journey and all of that. It's there's like kind of parallels, I guess we could call it, to things that we saw all the way back in like King Arthur, that the Jedi Knights being knights, and following their code of morals and everything.
100%. It's like the reverse Mordred thing I mentioned a few podcast episodes ago.
Yeah, exactly. And then to bounce off what's being talked about in chat, AJB's right. That's where looking at ancient religious beliefs is a great place for inspiration. Even if you find something horrifying, they got great concepts to get fascinated by. One of the most interesting concepts in religion, and I would love to have an entire talk about religion one day, is Gnosticism constantly keeps being re-brought up as a Christian heresy. For those of you who are Christian, Gnosticism is probably the only heretical belief worth studying and looking into. It's definitely wrong, but every few years it gets reinvented by people who claim, if you ever wonder why people are like, God's evil and he hates us, that's basically Gnosticism. The more you boil it down and the more you look into it, it's the same Gnostic beliefs of the demiurge and the two gods and the dualist universe. It's really cool. It's fascinating to read. And in fact, if you read that, you'll understand something like Morrowind much better. Because Morrowind, in the entire way Vivek talks and his philosophy, only works from a Gnostic and Hindu worldview. You have to understand those two religions fundamentally, and then you completely understand Vivek and understand Morrowind's lore 100% more. How cool is that? Because you know the same foundational source. On that, I think that you could
understand the power of drugs in writing.
Yeah. Well, technically, that's always been a rumor. Kirkbride has denied it, and Todd Howard has never confirmed it. But I do want to bring up something that's going to get some groan for one person here. But on this topic of Star Wars is also a Western at its heart. Part of it, not all of it is. You could very easily say, hey, I want to read some of the more great Western novels that have existed. All right, I'm gonna duck and cover. You know what's gonna happen. You could read No Country for Old Men. You could read basically anything he wrote. I don't want to say its name because I'll be shot at for it. But the specific novel
also on YouTube, McCarthy's books are.
Was it the Wendigo book?
You wrote a book?
Do Star Wars Blood Meridian.
That's the one. That's the one.
But no, I'm serious. If you read those books,
it's a Gnostic novel, though.
It is.
The idea behind it is entirely based on Gnosticism. The author was very into that sort of thing at the time.
You should listen to Cormac McCarthy, not read him. It's meant to be listened to. You should listen to it.
It's written in English. If I speak English, read English, I'll get through it.
It's not written in English. It's parts in Spanish. Don't lie to me, Pops.
It is possible to read it, but it is meant to be listened to. He literally wrote it like it with the idea that it's a spoken tradition, and it's not good to read. I'm just saying, it's not good to read. It's not fun
Regardless
to
of
read.
the arguments that the authors here are going to have about the book, I think that if you had somebody who read McCarthy's work and took those inspirations and turned them into like a bounty hunter show in Star Wars, just imagine that. You would have an actual gritty show with the way the characters interact and just how prevalent the violence would be and how intense and just revolutionary it is. Because the thing about all McCarthy's work is the violence isn't gratuitous. It's like poignant. When it happens, it's great and powerful because that's how violence works. But it's metered. Once the violence is done, it's pretty much done. It's been metered out. Only in Blood Meridian does it, like with one character, who I don't want to get into for spoiler reasons, does he super engage with it. And the fact that he engages with it constantly is the reason he's there. It's part of the character and it's part of the thing that's being explored here. The Glanton gang, they are horrible to do terrible things throughout the whole book. Not every single scene they're in is them doing something terrible, though, which is important.
Well, about it as well is that there's parts of it that are horrible violence that literally just gets mentioned in passing, like in one sentence. Like it says at one point, it just goes, "Oh, a few days out from Chihuahua, they massacred a Pueblo. They rode through 4 days later, and everyone was still there, just dead in the ground." It's like they just mention it like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it's something. Yeah, they get very. There's parts of it where you get like pages of run-on sentences that are describing the most horrific thing you could possibly fucking imagine, and then we get other stuff like that. So I feel like it takes into account the significance of the event, like relative to the story and how it actually affects the main characters. But anyway, that we're talking about.
Well, no, you're leading into it. And that idea of, hey, if I come at a story from a perspective that's not being told right now and say, how can I take my inspirations from, McCarthy's work and just all the different ways that he portrays violence and add it to a Star Wars setting, you would get a really fresh news take on Star Wars that still fits Star Wars really well because, as Pop said, the Gnostic beliefs, the idea that there's a divine good and there's a divine evil and there's an order to the universe is super important in Star Wars. Knowing that, if you take other authors and creators and say, hey, why don't you go back to the classics? Why don't you start tying in things and try to really do your best to cram everything in? Sometimes you get stories that are so packed full of different content that it's almost rushed in its nature. And that's when we get to today's show.
Oh, I know where that was going.
Yeah, X-Men 97.
I do got one thing that I think plays into what we mentioned before, that it's gotten so bad, the state of like creating these types of works, that not only is it people who, I liked Star Wars as a kid and now I get to work on Star Wars. When you look at The Witcher, it's people who literally know nothing about it and are actively like, antagonistic towards the actual source material. So I think it's a recipe for disaster, as we've seen with how that series has turned out anyway.
Like I said, the counter to it is X-Men 97. X-Men 97 very clearly is written by people who love the source material. They want to engage it, and they want to take what's already there and pull it into new stuff.
Yeah, in fact, the creator of X-Men 97, DiMeo, actually worked on The Witcher show and noticed how the Witcher writers hated the source material.
Yeah.
And so that's why, working on the show, he made sure the people who were working on X-Men actually liked the X-Men.
It's a rare thing to learn from your mistakes these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on that, I think that we should go around the horn and hang on, I want to see what Legacy said. There's certainly a lot more with Captain Marvel's story to talk about than Captain Carol, who's literally everything Marvel criticized. Cold Warrior. No, that's another thing. I don't know why they pick the certain characters they do, and I do want to harp on that because this show, characters are picked incredibly well to deal with situations. We'll talk about them when we get to them, but I'll just I'll just go into a quick tangent about it. There's a moment where Jean Grey is pregnant, and she needs to be taken to the hospital. All right, that's a setup for a situation. However, her husband is away. He's doing something else, protecting people, so he can't be there. That's a good setup. This is a sitcom setup for situations.
Yes.
Who do you want to leave with Jean Grey? A lesser writer would have left Jubilee. Why? Because she's a teenager, and that's a traditional storytelling thing of the young female teenager now has to deal with the older female woman who's got to get to the hospital who doesn't know. Okay, that's just the basic first pass. A better pass would be somebody who would be more sympathetic to her, like Beast. Beast would be trying to logic her through the situation. Okay, but that's not as interesting as they put fucking Wolverine there. Wolverine, the guy who is the least qualified, least able to handle a woman at all, let alone a pregnant woman. Let alone the pregnant woman he's in love with, who's pregnant with his rival/friend's kid. There's so much emotional stuff tied up there that is the perfect choice for the situation. And when
This
we
was
see this,
legitimately a great scene.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so it's
Because
one of those.
perfect, yeah, because when it's
Yeah.
Logan,
Right.
you know all about their past and everything, and he just looks up like, oh shit. But also, it helps him as a character to build that kind of relationship that he has with Jean kind of back into a positive light rather than, him being pissed off at her and pissed off at Scott. All this. I feel like it worked on so many levels.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And-
I think it was an important thing. It was like his big moment in almost this entire show, except for one thing at almost the very end of the show.
Yeah,
that makes
and I
it
think
like
it's a
actually
great
has
use of
a
Wolverine's
brighter shine
character.
moment.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna be the hater this whole fucking time. I'm sorry,
can't
guys.
wait.
I'm gonna
Oh,
be
no.
the hater this whole fucking time.
Did you hate Wolverine?
No. That's fine. I like the character moment. The character moment's good. Okay, character moment's fine. The UN is being attacked.
Okay.
And the leader of the combat team is like, let me go be with my wife who's good. There are doctors. Let the doctors.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we're setting up. I know they ruin it. We're gonna get into the whole series of the show. Every good thing they do, they immediately shit on it and ruin it. I got you. But I'm talking about specifically. That's the DNA of a good writer, right there. The idea that these are the characters that you picked for this situation. That's the best possible setup you could have had for this scenario. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what everybody's thoughts about it. This show makes me feel so many complicated emotions. It's easily a 2 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10 at the same time because sometimes it's got like Pag brought up retarded moments where it's just like, oh yeah, let's stop defending the UN because Super Hitler's on trial right now and the super racists want to kill him. I gotta go be with my wife who's got like 20 other people already with her. I got it, Scott. You're kind of literally in the middle of a war right now. The other situation, though, is then you have Magneto, who gives one of the best speeches, I think, in Disney Marvel history, where he's got the entire UN and the racists flying in the air. And he's like, yes, a lesser version of me would have just smoked both of you. I would have thrown this man into the sun for his crimes, the way he took Storm's powers away, and all these situations. I wouldn't be here before you, but I'm here because my friend Charles Xavier is. I am here because this is what I was asked for. And I'm here, and I hope to God for both of us, I don't let you down. He's got them in the air. That is an implicit threat to say, I'm literally going to drop you fools, and we're going to find out how quick gravity catches up, as well as saying, I don't want to let you down spiritually and morally. I want to make an amends for myself. What an amazing setup and situation. Very potent writing and a great way to have that. But then you have, like we said...
Magneto was the GOAT.
Oh, Magneto was great in this whole series.
GOAT of this show.
But then you
Also
have
perfect.
situations
Almost
where,
the main
like,
character.
oh my
Of
gosh.
like, it was also perfect in context of like what he's trying to prove. He's like, I'm not a monster anymore.
Exactly.
And he's like, he puts them in a position where literally he's in he has all the power. They have no leverage, nothing. And he's like, I'm doing the right thing. And that's,
And
I
another
think it
cool thing
well.
to note
it was
is
perfect.
that he almost has the Superman design to
Yeah.
invoke that heroic imagery.
He really
That's what I'm
does.
saying. And it's just
I
one of
love
those
his
things.
design on this show.
Yeah, and you watch that moment, and you're like, this was stunning. But the problem is, it's followed up with baby drama, where there's a racist who doesn't want to deliver the baby. So Rogue comes over and takes the baby delivering knowledge out of him, and then gets the nurses who just weren't racist but didn't know how to deliver a baby, apparently. Then they're all suddenly agreed to help with this, and then the racist's like, you can't do that. So Wolverine punches him in the mouth. I'm sorry. What's going on with that situation? That's like the dumbest shenanigans ever. But like, then,
I think if I
it's-
was a nurse,
ah,
if I was a nurse though, and I watched that happen, I'd be like, I don't want my brains getting sucked out. I'll do what she says.
right.
Yeah, for real.
But you gotta admit, that was a funny Wolverine moment.
Oh, it was very funny. But the thing is,
Mhm.
it's Wolverine doing that. Everybody's in character. That's another thing I want to talk about. The humor in the show is fantastic because everybody's still in character the whole time. There's some great jokes that only work because they're in character. Yeah, I'm sorry. What? So yeah, I was going to explain for AJB. They deliver Jean Grey to the hospital. As she enters the hospital, she looks totally normal. By the way, she doesn't look like a mutant. The doctor looks at her. Oh, you're Jean Grey, that mutant, aren't you? He's like, yes, I'm pregnant. And Wolverine's like, yes, Doc, her water broke. Well, I hate mutants. I refuse to deliver any mutant babies to this hospital. And Wolverine's like, well, I'll just kill you. And Rogue happens to
they
show
really
up.
not have like another doctor in the hospital? Surely there's one more doctor in the hospital. What, like, who's not a racist? Like, surely there's at least one. Come on.
Maybe
At
they
least
only
one not
hire-
racist doctor. Oh,
They-
by the way, thank you,
Also, thank you,
Blackaroonie.
Blackaroonie, for the donation.
Yep.
Rune,
Hey,
my-
if you
Got to it
want,
first.
yeah, if you want some Godzilla content, go to his channel. He loves Godzilla. In fact, Godzilla's referenced in this show. We'll get to that later. Ah,
Yes.
all right. I know we just had a hot open there
So
because
fine.
there's so much good stuff in the show, and it's just so emotionally thing. But I think we need to take a step back. Everybody walk around the room and let's tell us how you
Talk
thought
the
about
theme
the show.
song.
Well, you could do that, but I want a quick take from everybody and their opinion on the show. Astro, I'd like to start with you since you are a resident comic book expert.
Yes, it reminded me why the X-Men are awesome. But
Yeah.
the last 5 years of comics have been on this weird island with reincarnation and whatever, with insane cut plot lines left and right.
Astro, I
And
think
now
you need to
we're
go into more
back.
detail. It's not reincarnation. It's everybody is a plant clone of each other.
It wasn't a plant clone. There was like, bro, I don't want to explain the John Hickman. I need a PowerPoint slide to explain this every 5 minutes.
We need a whole podcast just to explain how stupid it is. Believe me, the comics lately have been awful.
Yep. And they're actually they're going to relaunch the comics in just like a month or two here with almost 90s-esque stuff, but also kind of not.
I hope they do.
I'm not too sure how that's going to do, but I'm curious about the result. So with this show, it reminded me why I like the X-Men in the first place. And it's because they are the most quintessential comic book superheroes ever. You got time travel, you got clones, you got evil scientists, you got cameos, you got crossovers. You got all the stuff that makes superheroes stand out from each other. A close view on continuity, because this show will actually reference the old show. And there's only just like one major continuity issue at the like episode 10 that was caused by studio interference that we'll get to later in the episode. But what this show did was what people should be the blueprint of any media company that has a franchise that has lasted for years of what it should be, is to remember what made it popular in the first place.
So I'm going to have to give some pushback as calling it a blueprint. I do think this is a fantastic version compared to what we've been getting. This is definitely in the right direction. This show, and I'm going to move it into my opinion on it. Like I said earlier, it's a 2 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10. This is definitely the best Marvel content in half a decade. Hands down. If you like Marvel, you're going to love this. If you are a fan of X-Men, you're going to really enjoy this. This show requires you to know what's going on with the X-Men, though. There's a complete lie, and I'm mad at you, Disney. I'm mad at you, Marvel. You told me I could watch this show without watching the original stuff. That's straight up a fucking lie. There are characters. I'm a fan of a lot of the old stories. I was reading comics a little bit, and I watched some of this show back when I was a kid. There's stuff that I just don't know what happened. If I hadn't listened to just some guys' reviews and I had talked to Astro in here, I would be so incredibly confused as to what the hell was going on the entire time. Because there's so many plot points that just show up. Well,
I
I feel
imagine the ending of episode 10 would be very confusing to you about the people who show up at the end.
well, let's say people show up. There's a second end credit scene that because it actually makes sense of who the guy who you meet is. So like, oh, who's this idiot? They drop his name like he's Darth Vader, and it's like, well, yeah, kind of, but you'll find out later. Anyway, we'll get into that. But this show, like I said, there are so many small moments where there are characters just talking to each other, whenever they actually do talk to each other. 90% of the time, they're currently spouting dialogue at each other because they have to get through the plot points real quick because they condensed like 40 years of comic into a weekend of storytelling. Like,
True. They even adapt some storylines from past the 90s mark, like E for Extinction.
yeah. There's just so
Yeah,
much stuff they adapted. It's fascinating.
The whole thing is so damn rushed. The
Yeah.
whole time,
Feels rushed.
everything is rushed. Everything, like
In the worst
you don't
way.
ever get time to like consume and think about anything that they've shown you because it's on to the next one, on to the next one, always. And whenever they introduce something new, the writing, I mean, it suffers for it doubly because first off, rushed writing is not good. You should let a plot point, simmer and mature. But
I want
also,
to jump in and give you a boost here. Remember the scene we talked about a minute ago where Magneto was like, "Don't let me down," and if in your head, I know how you audience who haven't watched it, you would see that the next part of that scene is Magneto slowly lowering everybody down as the audience got to absorb what he said. That doesn't happen. It like jump cuts to them down and jump cuts back to the hospital, and we're already on the next plot point. Go, 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 go. That makes that scene so much weaker. Thank God I'm watching this at home and I can pause it for myself, because I know that sometimes, as a storyteller myself, the pausing is important. Frequently in the show, I had to pause it because I'm like, all right, I have to let it see. I have to see think about this, what was said for a second, because if this was a normal show, we'd be given a second to breathe. And man,
almost can't keep up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's also probably why it feels like, and why I would have given it a lower score based on just the first probably 4 episodes. In the later ones, I think it bumped it up a point or two on the scale of 1 to 10. I would say the dialogue felt like it was so much just blatant exposition. And it's weird because sometimes you say, well, it's expositional dialogue that's overly, just blatantly saying exactly what's going on. It feels like sometimes it's lazy. In this case, if they would say it was rushed, I would believe it. Because what else were they gonna do? How else were you gonna make sure everyone was keeping up?
Well, there's a specific plot point that I feel like I missed 3 episodes because the whole Jean Grey's clone comes back. That happens, and then we cut, and they're like, oh, Madeline Pryor's now the head of another island. Who the hell is Madeline Pryor? What do you mean Jean Grey is a clone? That's just completely cut out and skipped. And unless you know what's going on,
No, it
We
wasn't.
get one very brief.
no,
They mentioned that
yeah,
at the very end of episode 3.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
So,
It still doesn't really.
It's the very end of the episode, and she's like, "Oh, call me Madeline Pryor." It's like, "Oh,
And
why?"
That's all we
What?
get.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah,
That is kind of random.
Yeah.
it really is.
So you're looking at it, and now if I was if I was a normal writer, I would have had an entire couple episodes of explaining the situation. Jean Grey's clone just came back. What in the hell are you talking about? That's like an entire season's worth of content. And it's done off screen between 2 episodes. That the majority of her moving out, her setting up here, her having their kid. And they just mentioned, oh yeah, Cyclops and her threw their kid into the future. And it's like, what do you mean they threw their kid into the future? I know Alice's character why they did that, because they have to set up the next 14 things with, spoiler alert, by the way, Cable. I know that's why they did it, because I know comics. But, that's an entire important plot point. There's a reason that in all these superhero adaptations, we see his mom and his dad arguing and debating if they should or shouldn't send soups to Earth, because it's important to have that discussion. Not because we need to see the physical moments, but because the torment on their face tells us as audience members what's happening. We get to see them. And those are characters who just fucking die in Superman. This is 2 people who are the main plot points. Madeline Pryor, again, spoilers to the show, she ends up dying, and it's one of the driving forces behind the entirety of the X-Men plot. That's half the characters are well, she's one of the people that we fought for, and she's dead now. Jean Grey's
But
entire
you barely
plot.
know anything about her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
frustrating.
until you see. You need to kind of demonstrate the weight of someone's decisions that it has on them before you show them making a decision. Otherwise, it means nothing, or it means less, at least.
Yeah.
And
And I guess they actually kind of do that in episode 10, don't they?
a bit, but again, why are we rushing with this? Why did we get through so much content so quickly? I get you wanted to tell a complete story, but you could have very easily cut half of the storylines out of this show, given the ones that were there just a little bit more time and had more stuff.
And it's they do this with everything, like the adversary, the weird
Oh my god,
owl
Storm
demon
losing her
guy who
powers.
shows up.
That's a huge, like, what,
Yeah.
10, 15 comic arc in the comics, Astro?
No, I think it was just maybe 10 to 20 issues, but don't quote me on that. I haven't read.
So let's just take
I
10
haven't read that
issues.
part of the Claremont run.
What's
But
that?
in
Let's
the
just.
show, it's 2 episodes.
Yeah, I
Is that?
can see-
It's 2 half episodes.
In the
Yeah.
show, it feels like you're watching these interactions with Storm and this, monster, and you feel like you missed something. You're like, you just came out of nowhere.
And,
and then-
the wildest shit is that they're rushing things, but they're also putting things in that don't need to be there. Like the Motendo episode. Or
Which was
not
a
the
very-
Motendo episode, Motendo half of an episode. It's kind of
Yeah.
fun. It's kind of neat. But
It's
also,
great, but like,
Yeah.
it takes up
Yeah.
runtime.
By
From
itself,
time-
Yeah, it's because I imagine it's in there because Sunspot does not have anything to do in this show. They
Right,
could
they
have
needed-
put out
they-
Sunspot and not lost anything.
well, yeah, they could have, but they also needed Sunspot because they wanted to give Jubilee a romance interest, and it's very clear that's what they wanted. They wanted another character to betray the X-Men to join Magneto besides Rogue, and I guarantee they were trying to set up some dynamic where, huh?
They should have done Colossus.
They should have done Colossus,
Because
yes.
one of the arcs they did, that they adapted later, Fatal Attractions, had Colossus join Magneto's acolytes.
Several people join Magneto.
Yep.
That's a common thing because he's very compelling. And this show, oh my god, if you're a Magneto simp, this show is it for you, dude. This show makes Magneto
he's
look more
the
correct
hero
than
of the show.
anything. And like,
Really.
and what's frustrating is
really
he's not correct because if look, normal logic, what Magneto's saying is wrong. But then the show sets it up so everybody else is so stupid and retarded that Magneto's correct by default. Like the UN acts in, like Pag mentioned earlier, the most suicidal and reckless way ever. You could give a bunch of drunk rednecks the UN Security Council, and they would act more in line and logical than the way the UN acts in this damn show.
Mm-hmm.
as a drunk redneck, I can confirm.
Yeah, bring those helicopters to capture Magneto was not a good move.
For real. They're like, oh, we got
Oh,
plastic
yeah.
guns. What are you going to do? And he's like, you got metal helicopters, dipshit.
I
Like,
think the movie actually, the movie did a better job than that.
Better job.
mhm.
But like, I think it's fascinating because, like,
I
again,
haven't watched the movies. What did they do?
they had everything plastic and metal. Everything was rubber,
Yeah,
plastic, and metal.
The way that Magneto gets out is he has one of his buddies inject a guard with liquid
Mystique,
iron. Yeah.
So what
and
happens? Yeah. So Mystique like
Bro, there was
romance
no Mystique
a
in this show.
security guard.
No.
No, she's brought up
Yeah.
like 3 times and she's not in the show. It's really weird.
Yeah,
You're
it's
right, yeah.
Like, do you think she was supposed to be someone in the show, but they waited another season?
So,
'Cause I bet it was supposed to be Cooper.
I don't know
UN lady.
because
here's the
that's
thing.
part of the reason I feel like there's so many like kind of little Easter egg things that if you are a loyal fan of like the comics or the older universe, you just know who everyone is that's an established X-Men character. You're going to enjoy it more than somebody who, is new to the franchise, doesn't know as much about the property. And that's part of the reason why I asked you guys the other day. I'm like, it's hard to tell like who this is, like the target demographic. It's hard to pin down. It's like it feels like it's all over the place at times because of things like that.
It is absolutely written for 40-year-old nerds.
Yes. And the other thing is,
90s.
that's a nice way to put it. It's written for people who watch the show when they were kids. This is not a show I could show my kids. I do want to, quickly take a tangent to talk to Blackaroonie in the comments. We haven't talked about it yet, but the Executioner and Magneto having the most logical lines, I think that's both true and false because the Executioner is a raving moron who's this stupid shit. Then he shows up to the UN and he has only perfect bangers that he says to the X-Men. That small clip that you saw online where he's talking to the X-Men about how privileged they are and how they need to stop whining about it, that's literally the only logical argument he makes. Because 5 minutes before that, he's sitting over the corner like, I hate these muties. Let's kill them all. Why? Because muties, white power. And then he says these logical things in front of everybody, and then he goes back, it literally says, let's go talk to more people on forums about how we hate muties.
And then that's it.
Here.
He
I
never,
think
he never shows up again.
Right away,
Yeah.
they actually cut out something massive from the Executioner. So in
Oh,
the
yeah?
comics, the Executioner was actually inspired by the Punisher.
Well, yeah, we
The
have to
way
cut
he
that out.
does.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. That's also evidence that the show is supposed to be, it should have been stretched out over probably more episodes or more seasons. It
Mhm.
feels that's evidence of how rushed it is, that we have to establish characterization for this guy, because like he does say logical things once you know what his general perspective is, and the same goes for Magneto. But it's like we need to establish him having that perspective. And so you just rush through him sounding like a jackass and sounding like an asshole instead of actually having him arrive at those ideas or be a little bit more nuanced. Or it feels like he's just a bigot for no reason, you know?
All right, so that's another great question. Why don't you use the Punisher? So this goes back into the same reason they didn't use Mystique. So here's the problem, I think, and this is where we have to talk about, unfortunately, the meta of this dang show. I really hate having to talk about the meta because the way that the meta is interacted with just all Marvel content is frustrating beyond end. So here we go. The reason Executioner cannot be inspired by, it's not just copyright, inspired by Punisher is because Marvel hates the Punisher. Because a couple of cops were edgy and they wanted to use the skulls because they want to, play pretend fascists. They wanted to, well, that's what it is. They just like, oh, it's so cool. He's got skulls and stuff. Now they're too scared to use the character. Like, side note, let's be off track. But the Boys comic in one moment, yeah, we're not going to talk about the Boys. You can keep typing like I said, I'll get to you in a sec. And the reason Mystique wasn't used is because Mystique is currently in this huge, like, strange, controversial shit show online. That's like a shadow war. Like you can see hints of it between us. So Mystique is also a hyper sexy, super empowered girl boss who's also a lesbian, who's also a transsexual character because she birthed Nightcrawler while she was a man, but she birthed Storm while she was a woman, but didn't and did at the same time because that's a whole complicated mess. And then Rogue. And like there's a whole bunch of complicated, I meant Rogue, not Storm, by the way, earlier, I'm sorry. There's a whole bunch of complicated stuff that they just don't want to touch because having that character like that. Then there's the Jennifer Lawrence angle, where Jennifer Lawrence was the last character they had that with, and then people would be asking why she's not tied into this, when they don't want to tie it into her, because Disney very clearly does not want to work with Jennifer Lawrence, because Jennifer Lawrence has had some just straight up moronic takes lately online. And, with the whole, I was the first female action person. So Disney has to support her for that because they support women, but they can't support her because that would be denigrating their own actresses and their own lines that they're the first action people. So it's just a whole bucket of problems. If you look at it, it's like, just don't put Mystique in there. It is not worth the headache. Whereas Punisher is out for political reasons, Mystique's out because there's so much complicated crap going on that as Marvel, I can see them just saying it's not worth the headache. Write a different character in.
Yeah, to tie about the characters not being able to be in here, Deadpool and T'Challa were not able to be put into the show. They were specifically forbade from using them.
He was in the show, though. T'Challa was in the show.
No, that was actually T'Chaka.
Oh, you're right, actually. He's King T'Chaka.
Yeah, it was. So why were they not allowed to be in the show?
It's a continuity issue. I imagine because the live-action actor Chadwick Boseman died.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That's why they don't want to use him.
Yeah.
But for Deadpool, I imagine they didn't want Deadpool because with Deadpool's meta nature, he would make things confusing for audiences very fast. Like that's just like a writing trap right there.
Hey, real quick, was Cable played by the same, what's his name? The guy from No Country for Old Men who played Thanos. Was that Cable like he was in the Deadpool movies?
No, the Cable voice actor in this was actually the original Gambit voice actor from the original series.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. I thought they sounded kind of similar, but that's way more interesting.
Yeah, Josh Brolin
Cable
plays
has
Thanos.
Cool lines in this show.
Yeah,
yes, that's his name. I knew it started with a J, dude.
Yep, Josh Brolin, baby.
The guy from the Goonies, the older brother. Yeah.
Yep. That's another thing about the show that's really confusing. Like I was talking in our chat earlier that we have, it feels like they rolled the dice every scene and just handed out like roles to people. There's four authors on this show, writers. I don't know which one was the smart one, but very clearly only one of them was because like DeMayo, you think?
Oh, 100%.
From
he was the one who wrote most of the episodes.
I can believe it because like you'll be watching the show and like an episode, and you'll be like, this is banging. Like the lines are on point. Magneto's spouting good one-liners. The other X-Men are getting good digs in. Everybody's in character. Everybody's writing jokes. And like the jokes, so nice. All right, so this is another thing I want to get into. This show is the first in a while that's not written like Buffy because everybody's not a teenager. It's so nice to have people written like actual people. Oh, it's so frustrating because like, well, no, it's Captain Marvel. It's the same thing because everybody writes the characters like they're writing for Buffy. Buffy's about high schoolers. They're going to be snarky. They're going to be dickish. They're going to be little kids. They're fucking high schoolers, dude. So when you're writing a show like this, which is not about high schoolers, which is about adults, they should act differently. They should act more reserved. They should have different ways of speaking. Even just the fact that Beast talks like as Pop said, Peabody and Sherman. The fact that he talks like that is great, but it's also part of his character because you get fun moments where Beast starts going off on his own little tangent, just blah 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 blah, and then people have to pull him back in. Because he's so smart, he just starts getting in his own head. You get several jokes about that where Beast is like, oh yeah, let's do this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing. And we're just going to literally kill this guy. And Storm has to smack him like, no, we're not doing that. We don't do that, Beast. He's like, oh, okay. That's funny. There's fun jokes like that. And it's like, oh, it's so frustrating because the characters are written with jokes in mind. Like the jokes are written, the characters in mind, and like I want to praise it. And I want to talk about it more. Because that's how you're supposed to write jokes in these things. That's how we used to get jokes back in the day.
It has respect for the characters and who they are versus, like, because you look at like a high school scenario where people only get 16 years of life experience. You can't write those same jokes for a guy like Wolverine, who was born in the colonial era, who's seen who's seen like wars and everything. You got to respect the characters, and I think they did a good job.
And not just that, Wolverine wouldn't be quipping. He wouldn't be making a one-liner and turn to the camera. Well, that just happened. Jubilee would. So what do? If you want to have that joke, you then go backwards and write a moment so Jubilee's in that scene. So you write Jubilee to be there so she can mog at the camera and be like, oh, well, totally, dude, because that's what you wanted to write. Instead of just giving that line to another character who's in that scene. This is why, I know that everybody hates him right now. This is what Joss Whedon did really well. This is why him writing Buffy, and Buffy came out super good, and you go back and watch Firefly, they are really good shows. Why? Because sure, they're written about a bunch of emotional characters, well, especially Buffy, but like the characters still act in character. There's never a moment where Wolverine puts on a tutu and looks at the camera and goes, well, this is stupid. No, he would just shred it in half and not even get that far. Whereas Gambit is dressed as, we put before the show, a very, it was a different time in the 90s. What was considered a straight man is not considered for straight men these days. That crop top did something.
I also like how his opening scene to show was him making beignets, Louisiana favorite.
Yeah. And it's just something like, so you have that.
Beignets in the original show.
Well, that's the other thing. And you're looking at the show, and it's like, okay, so Gambit, all of his jokes are going to revolve around him being from Louisiana, being a playboy, being, a bit of a smartass. That's fine. There's never a moment where Gambit has to do something out of character. And it makes the whole show feel really good. Great examples as Magneto. He makes a couple fun jokes. He makes a couple like banging lines, but it's not written out of character. Magneto never just looks at the camera and, with Wolverine, it's like Wolverine's like, I'm going to get you, bub. And he's like, looking, what are those? And pulls his organs out. No, that would ruin the damn show. But, like, modern Marvel would write it like that. So bad.
Oh, man. That was a good one. Yeah, I totally agree. 100%. And Magneto's one of those guys where even though, like you said, like he's wrong, he's a maniac, he's evil, whatever. He's genocidal. You understand where he's coming from. They did a good job of establishing that. Obviously, everyone knows who Magneto is, but you still got to kind of take into account some of the trauma in the past that he's had, especially with Charles. And I think they did a decent job with that, too, especially with how much he respected Charles and his wishes,
I think
and related to that, I noticed that they didn't actually refer to famous world events by name. Like about what of Magneto's backstory, which I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, which I think is very weird for the platform. But also that Forge
costly hallway
said that he lost his some limbs in a war, but it didn't mention that he actually specifically fought in Vietnam.
That's strange.
I felt that was
didn't
weird.
know that.
Yeah.
I think it's because the show wants to stay semi-timeless and semi-cowardly, because we know it's set in the 90s, but we're watching it in 2024. you can but Ford saying I fought in the war, you can make it think it was the Iraq War because it makes sense. It's just the war. Doesn't matter what war. It has to be the Vietnam War for the show.
Event in the 90s as well, but
Right. Well, the thing with Magneto is, and it's unfortunate that time has to move forward linearly because he can't be a victim of the funny Germans. Let's just say. By the way, I really appreciate it, YouTube. You're doing a fantastic job with all the censorship. It makes it awesome because now we have so many people who get to deny basic reality because I can't talk about basic reality on your platform. Smart thinking, champs.
Funny Germans.
He
You're the
did
funny
a
Germans.
little. He walked backwards away from the shower room.
Exactly. So you know what? Astro posted a meme here. I can't get it on screen, but don't worry. It's the clip of a scene with one of my favorite jokes. So Magneto and Rogue, they kind of have a little bit of a thing in the show. They kind of get hot for each other. Rogue doesn't know if she likes Magneto or she likes Gambit more. She's still figuring it out. So they go to have coffee. So they're having coffee, and Gambit's like, hey, Rogue, you want your normal coffee? And she's like, oh, don't worry. Magneto already made it for me. That's a fantastic sitcom setup already right there. It's very clear he's already moving in on his homeboy's turf. So Magneto's got the coffee out, and he's like, oh, you made the coffee for all of us? Gambit looks at Magneto, and he's like, no, just for me and her. What a power move. Mm-hmm. It's a very funny joke, and it's completely in character for Magneto. And then he invites him to sit down because he's still the leader of the team, so he's showing off. And he's like, okay, who wants some sugar? And, Rogue's like, I'll take 3. So he uses his power to bring 3 sugars for Rogue. And Gambit's like, well, if you're taking orders, I'm not. I'm giving them. It's great because it's all written in character and it's actually funny lines. And it also builds to the story that's going on. So now you get to look at it and say, wow, it's interesting because you're getting the dynamic. You're establishing the rivalry between these two rather quickly. Establishing that Rogue kind of sees them getting a little bit tested with each other and kind of wants to play both of them off each other as girls do in that situation when they have 2 suitors vying for them. And it's a great setup and they're all in character. So nice.
And on a larger scale, I think Magneto does a good job. They did a good job writing that as well. Because he, you notice he always calls them my X-Men, which is such a power. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Because again, Xavier did put him in his will.
Yeah. And again,
he's still alive.
That's another thing. All right, let's talk about some of the retarded stuff of this show. Xavier being alive is absolutely moronic. I hate that so much. Because the problem is...
the thing is, it's just an asshole. That's they tell you he's dead at the beginning, and then they're like, oh, yeah, there's these these galactic bird people who... What? And they brought him back to life. Yeah. What? And they gave him a super suit so he can walk. What?
Oh, wait.
And then he just doesn't have it when he gets back to Earth. What? What is going on?
Did they actually...
You have to watch the final episode of the original series to actually understand why. And that's kind of a problem.
Sure, I'll give you that, Astro, completely. Let's just say it all makes sense. Here's the problem. The characters act like they watched him get brained. They all act like he was brutally murdered in front of them. But they all know he's fine. That's the real issue. If you wrote the show intelligently, nobody but maybe Jean Grey or maybe Cyclops, one person maybe, should know that Xavier's alive. Because now you have the problem where they're like...
source of tension.
A great source of tension, because now you have the entirety of the world. It's like, oh man, I absolutely hate this idea that because the world gets mad at them. It's like they knew Xavier was alive the whole time, and we thought they were good for that. Like, yeah, the world is right to be mad at you, and doubly mad. Magneto is justified to be mad at you, which makes it even worse because it's like, hey, dumbasses, you don't like Magneto. He was put in charge of your organization. You think in 30 seconds you can actually he's living with a bird waifu now, Magneto. So even though he's legally dead, he's not actually dead, so you can't be in charge. Because there's a whole fight where nobody trusts him, and everybody wants to kill Magneto for 3 episodes straight until he hits on Rogue, and then they suddenly start coming around partway through. But that could have all been avoided because they're like, hey, actually Magneto, he's not really dead, so you can't be part here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's such an asshole.
I wasn't sure... In the show, it doesn't make it clear in the show if everybody does or doesn't know that he's dead. So they all do know. That's they all know.
They say it in the show.
That's a fact.
They say it. And it's I'm like, why did you say it? Why did if everybody was shocked and like, all the characters like, wow, I can't believe it, and Xavier's like, well, I thought you guys would be fine. Okay, it's fine for Xavier to be wrong. I'm completely okay with him being wrong about things. Xavier worship goes too far in a lot of X-Men media, but for him to be like, just told everybody, Wolverine of all fucking people, Wolverine would not be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Really, really now. Oh.
It threw me
Also,
off.
in chat,
Because
there's a
even
question about why Magneto is dating Rogue, and it's because they actually did date in the comics, and I don't know why Claremont did it. I imagine it's because they're actually leaning towards a comic book event called Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Where they actually, I won't talk about what happens in Age of Apocalypse, but they actually do have most of the X-Men roster from that event in the show right now. And I imagine that's going to be season pre or maybe second half of
At the end of season two. At the end of the season, it's going to be season 2. You see the fucking ending?
Yeah, Astro, I was going to say,
but
Apocalypse, he's the Egyptian guy, right? No spoilers, but like that's his character. He's like the first mutant ever, and he like ruled Egypt.
Yes, but there's actually lead up to how Age of Apocalypse happens, which actually was like, they actually made another event to lead to the event. It was called Legion Quest.
Yeah,
And
so those of you who don't
they haven't
know,
mentioned Legion in this.
yeah, so I wanted to just good. This show does not have after credit scenes until the very, very end. Then it's got one where it's got a scene where it shows our characters, most of them, are stuck in ancient Egypt, and they go up to a guy like, oh yeah, this is Eb Nasor. And for the first time in the whole damn show, we have a pause, and it's like, oh wait, this is supposed to be a clap moment. Who the hell is this guy? And why does he have Apocalypse's like dick sucking lips? And then it comes at the credits to the end, and you see Apocalypse the same thing, like, my mutants, I love ye. And he picks up Gambit's card. And so that is Apocalypse, because he's got the same exact blue lips of just, Angelina Jolie style rim jobbing.
I can see what you were thinking about.
Why does he speak?
Look, man, I was watching it really late. I had a few drawn cuz. The Mummy was on the other monitor, and the Tomb Raider was on the other monitor.
It Pops, in regard to your question, I feel like 75% of the X-Men should probably not be speaking English, even though they do.
Absolutely. You know what, though? They did a good job with Nightcrawler's accent, though.
Yeah. The one accent that makes sense in the show.
Nightcrawler
was actually
so good in this damn
from
show.
the 90s.
I'm going to give them a lot of credit right now because every other time they've done Nightcrawler in modern comics, his Christianity has been pushed to the back door. This show did a fantastic job with him. There's multiple times when he's praying, he's asking God for guidance, he's wishing well and asking the Virgin Mary for help. His Catholicism is still here because it's written by somebody competent. They don't have to believe in God. They have a character here who does. So whenever there's a problem or all about to die, he's going to pray to God. Like,
he's in character.
I love that.
That
if
funeral.
Nightcrawler interacted with Daredevil in the show,
that'd be neat. Yeah, but they of course didn't bring anybody else from the Marvel universe in except for like, oh look, this guy's here. Except for Captain America.
Except for Captain America, he'd be like, my hands are tied.
Yeah, he was in.
Yeah, sorry, can't
he had a
help you.
full like 4 lines.
Other people were just
he showed up to say I can't show up. It's
It's a mutant problem. It's not my problem.
Okay, I can actually tell you why they did that, and it especially relates to Rogue.
What's up?
Because there was this. Let's see if it was due to AVX Aftermath. Captain America and Rogue started an Avengers team to utilize the superhero community with the rest of the mutant community. And that's why they did it, but most people will not get that at all, and they probably won't do that for like 7 seasons, I would say, unless they speed things up even more so.
Deadpool did not show up in 97. I don't think he will. So let's quickly switch the chat for a second. Legacy. I originally planned to not have World War 1 and 2 in my setting, but I put it in the back burner for now. Okay, so Legacy, I love you, buddy. Don't do that. Keep it in there. It's very easy. Make the moment where everything shifted and got weird very recent, and then jump forward 50 years. Just set your story in the year 2080 and say technology stalled because they had the mutant wars or whatever. But the Flashpoint is 2025. Something easy, because that way you can keep all the same plot lines. And that's what My Hero Academia did. Regardless of the problems with the rest of that show, the reason they did they set it in the future is so they could move the borders where they wanted, but nothing has changed in technology, because otherwise it would get really weird. It's very hard to go back and write an entire alternate history for your world and for it to still connect to people. Alternate history is one of the hardest settings to write because everybody knows the history. It's very difficult to write it in a way that doesn't just feel like, why didn't you write your own damn fantasy setting? Shut up. All right, so
absolutely.
Next, Legacy says women. I agree. Women do exist.
It's incredibly difficult.
Yes, it's incredible they do
Just
exist.
to piggyback for no reason. It's incredibly difficult to write really anything that's based on alternate history that like doesn't take into account your own perspective. You know what I mean? It's really difficult to look back on history and say what would have happened, because obviously you've been kind of pretty much what's the word, familiarized with the things you know. It's really difficult.
I'm going to tell you right now, other than Turtle Dove, every other alternate history writer has a grand statement and then a very, very limited scope. The Man in the High Castle, the No-Nos won World War II. And then we only focus on like one guy who lives in Cleveland. We only focus on like a single character in New York. That's it. We don't go globe-trotting and figuring out what's going on in the thing. Your story legacy is globe-trotting. You're setting up an entire setting and universe. I know that's what you want to do. If you're going to do that, yeah, you're going to have such a completely different world.
Like a generation or two removed, right?
Well, if you not having World War I and II, that is incredibly difficult to have.
Yeah, the level of like spiraling changes that come off of that. Like, does the Ottoman Empire still exist? If no, why not? Like, if yes, why? What's going on with the Ottoman Empire these days? Like,
I want you to World War I is so overlooked in history class. This is an important detail for those who want to write alternate history and like want to understand history. World War I is way more important than World War II. World War I entered with, I think, 87 empires who controlled, I think, 75% of the world. It ended with only 3 of the empires left, and thousands of nations were created. World War II is even worse. World War I destroyed monarchy. It destroyed the idea of the nobility. It destroyed the honor in war. It completely revolutionized and rewrote everything. It gave the birth of the fantasy genre came out because it was so horrible what they witnessed in there that escapism was created. That's how terrible World War I was. It was
what else?
And then we had 20 years of buildup and a second one that did all of that again.
Yeah. You know what else happened? World War I was when people realized for real that the U.S. was the best country in the world.
Yeah,
so true.
Back-to-back World War champs. By the way,
at the time we got recognized as like a hegemonic figure, but we're really going off topic.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to go to chat because this is a live show, and I want to engage with chat a bit. So let's go to Mr. Rooney now. I hated how they treated Gambit with the love triangle. Out of all people, why Magneto? So Astro answered that earlier. Also, I think it's, and I want to enter Frederico's question at the same time. What do you think about the controversial Magneto relationship with a younger woman? I don't think their age gap is that big. I think the age gap is, in the show, much more condensed. I don't know the exact number. I need to see the number for it. I think if she's like, let's say 30 and he's like 50, that's a little weird. But I think that's not as bad as if she's like 20. Huh?
So the expensive haul and Magneto was in it. So he was like probably a young adult, so probably in his 20s.
He was young enough that he couldn't remember the expensive haul because he makes. Remember, I can't remember their faces, Charles. So he was about 6 when that happened. The show takes place in the year 97. That's why I said he's probably about 50.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean,
and I don't know what Rogue is. It's
Rogue
still a little
is clearly
weird.
a young woman. I think it's like a 30-year gap, which she's an adult woman. She's allowed to do that. Like let's not be
25
or something.
Be
silly here. Yeah, like a 25-year-old woman is allowed to date a 50-year-old woman. That's okay. They're allowed to do that. It's kind of weird, but it's okay.
I put her like pushing.
Yeah.
I bet the creators of the show were like, "Oh, you want some comic accuracy? Here's some comic accuracy."
Well, they also did it. They did date in the comics too, and that's the other problem. Like, I don't know how old Rogue is. That changes everything. Because if she's 30 something, like let's just say she's 35, just to keep it easy, a 15-year age gap's not that crazy. It's a little weird.
I do
but
not believe that Rogue is
It's
30.
socially
if
acceptable.
she's 25, that's a 25-year age gap. That's still
Yeah.
weird. But like I've seen couples like that, and you have to ask, well, is it saying it's good? No, because they break up, they get into fights, they have problems. It's very clearly anti that if you wanted to talk about it with the thing, and I think that happens. Those type of age gap relationships. I don't want one of those, obviously, but I can't know who I'm going to fall in love with. And it's very clear they had an emotional connection. The other problem is the Magneto-Rogue relationship works really well because they found a logical reason for Rogue to be able to touch him, essentially. It's kind of an ass pull, but it's the only time
really
anybody's ever tried to figure out how that could
100%.
happen.
Dude, the whole thing with what Magneto's powers can and can't do, what
power
everybody's
level of
powers
everybody.
can and can't do is
Yeah.
absurd. He can turn off all of the electronics in the world.
No.
What?
Peg.
Well,
And then he
No.
can just turn them back on?
No, Peg,
What?
he didn't
He
do that.
also-
You're
Why?
close. He's better. He stopped the magnetosphere.
Oh, but like
That's what he did,
What?
which causes an EMP, which turns everything off. He turned off
Yes.
magnetism for the whole world.
That's
That-
a permanent sort of thing. That's not like I'll just
That would
switch
have,
that back on. Whatever.
You can just get Reed Richards to fix it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Like, I understand, like, Peg, it's
No,
worse than you're thinking.
um,
It's so stupid. I hate it as well. All right. So let's just-
consequences would be devastating in real
Yeah.
life. Yes.
But like, and then Rogue, like, randomly she's got like incredible superpowers, and then suddenly she doesn't. Morph, he can just turn into people, and he gains all of their powers.
Not all
Like,
the
how is
powers.
he not-
He gains their
Yeah,
physical
was cool.
powers.
He turns into
He's-
Reed Richards. He turns
Yeah.
into the Hulk. He
Right,
turned
no,
into
so
Charles Xavier.
He gains their
He turned
physical
into
powers, not their
Quicksilver.
mental
Yeah.
stuff. That's the thing you got to remember. And that's
Is
okay.
that
It is a
still-
bit different.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's why he doesn't just turn into Xavier and put everybody to sleep every fight, which I think is a good nerf. Unfortunately, like I said, he can still turn into the Hulk. Which why are you the
Yeah.
Hulk every fight?
Yeah, or the Thing. You know, like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on here?
Okay, so back to chat.
Or-
I thought with the bird alien people they were going to introduce Darkwing, and I got excited. I don't know who that is, and neither do you. Apparently, you don't know who Darkwing is.
I don't know.
Something Wing. I don't know who you're talking about, Rooney. I'm sorry.
That's the Donald Duck spinoff.
Oh, yes, they should have. Yeah, you're right. They should have introduced Darkwing Duck. All right, Legacy. They want to make Xavier out more wrong compared to Magneto because he's a human sympathizer and humans are icky. I disagree. I think Xavier is wrong because Xavier doesn't want mutants to have any sort of backbone. The problem with Xavier is he thinks that humans and mutants can exist, and I don't want to get controversial, but you can extrapolate some of this show's themes and the way it talks about things and other thing. It's important to remember that they are different. Xavier doesn't want them to be different. That's the problem that the mutants keep running into. They should be treated differently, but that doesn't mean you need to be treated worse. That's where the entire problems of the show run into. This is what happens with any minority group in history. You have to understand that they are different from each other. You know, their differences do not make them
You
lesser
have to
than.
understand that this is a shared world.
Well, yes, and I think that
That's the Magneto quote at the end of episode 2.
yeah, because and again, that's to me that's the important thing. It's a shared world. The mutants definitely need to be treated differently. The fact that they get an island of Genosha, that's a really good idea. The fact that mutants should be allowed to go to a different school and set themselves up because they have powers. And unlike other minority groups throughout history, like we have a new religion that entered a society, and their beliefs should be respected because they're different. I get that, but that's not what's going on here. These guys actively can do things. There are children who are thermonuclear bombs in this setting. That's completely separate, and I understand saying, hey, maybe we should bring them to a society that is literally equipped to deal with them. It's upsetting that it's happening. It's very terrible that, it's going to have families be torn apart, but it's for the safety of everybody. This does not mean they should be treated as bad as they are on the show. It is baffling to me how everybody's just totally fine with abusing all the mutants.
I don't know. It's kind of an
And with
impossible
that,
problem.
of King, of what you were mentioning with separating them, that didn't work either because of episode 5 and its events of destroying the entire island.
That only happened
That
because the
someone
villain's
will
evil.
always hunt them down.
Right,
Right.
but that's the problem though, is because people weren't. That's the issue that it runs into is that. But and again, that's why the show is so enjoyable because it's got good takes on these things. You want to push back and forth about it. But yeah, oof.
I agree that in the moment it felt like it happened for literally no reason. And I'm not sure that they did a good enough job of like, kind of establishing the main villain towards the end. Like it still was kind of like weird that he went the route that he did.
All right, so next I want to skip Alex 1 sec. Banshee's Irish and it shows the dialogue. You're right, Legacy. Now we're going to go back to Alex. So Alex asks, why do they add 97? They should have just kept it X-Men. And he asks, will Deadpool show up? And then Sweaty says the 97 is for nostalgia baiting. I disagree. 97 is to tell you because that's the year that this was supposed to air. Because if you follow when the original X-Men show started, season 5 would have come out in 97. Hence, they added the 97 to it. It actually does serve a purpose. It also tells you the year the show is set, by the way. So that's helpful for understanding
I
things.
do wonder how long. Like, bro, what if we get more seasons and they move to 98?
No,
What's gonna happen then?
I think
Because,
it's going to be interesting for them
end
to
of
have to deal with
season- at the
99
end
with
of season
Columbine.
finale- Ooh, and at the, I mean, what about 9/11? Because
Yeah, what are the X-Men going to do during 9/11? Are we going to have a turning red
spend
situation?
a month, bro.
Yeah.
It's
They were
gonna
in
go.
the Twin Towers were in the first shot of the show. It
Yeah.
was also telling the audience what the show is actually about, because that's what episode 5 is supposed to be like. With
All
the,
right.
all
And
the
do you
people
think?
in panic with all the rubble.
Yep.
And do you, from the perspective of someone who isn't so familiar with the history of the franchise and the characters and the comics and everything, you see how that's a little hard to follow for us?
Oh, yeah, I agree. It's hard to follow. I think it's incredibly stupid that the show told us that it was allowed to be followed along, but it wasn't. All right.
Luckily,
Allowed to be followed along.
Yeah, so like,
followed with like kind of ease,
yeah. If you don't know comics
All
at all,
about
Astro, this show's
accessibility of the
incredibly
show.
difficult to follow.
Yeah, luckily,
Yeah, I kind of realized that at episode 10 because they don't give any context to who Apocalypse is, except
Yeah.
that he was in the theme song for a few seconds.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because the show, if they just explained things a bit better and slowed the fuck down, it'd be easily a 7 out of 10. Easily. Okay, so next we're going down to Black and Rooney. I absolutely love Nightcrawler on the show. A Catholic accurately depicted in the faith in 2024. What? Yeah, I know. It's pretty great. And also Sweaty likes Nightcrawler. I think that he has got my favorite scene in the entire show when they're in the mansion is being attacked, and he pulls out the 2 sabers and he's fighting with them, and then his tail comes in with the 3rd saber.
Oh man!
Him teleporting around with the sabers was the coolest shit, man. I felt like a kid again.
Real.
because it was Wolverine.
It went all out for the animation.
Yeah.
So Wolverine is like, I got 6 reasons to fight you, or whatever he said, and then Nightcrawler just pops in. He goes, "No, you got 9." And it's
So
like,
good.
all right.
You see what I'm saying? Like that the dialogue like that, that's a fist pump moment. That's a fuck yeah, that's a cool scene. And I look at it like, so I guess DeMaio, why have you not been given more things? Didn't they fire him from this show?
Yes, he was running a non-explicit OnlyFans.
What? We didn't ask why.
Really?
Just-
Wait a
it was
second.
yes or
They
no.
fired him for running an OnlyFans, yet some of the shit that their people have said, they've let go. Pedro Pascal wished that I was killed horribly. Guy who wanted to show people his butthole, and they were like, "Oh no." Well, you said not explicit as well. Yeah,
Well,
it's even worse.
Well,
That is so funny.
Oh my god, I hate this company so much. Do yourself a favor, everybody. Go to a friend's house who's an idiot, or go sail the high seas. Do not support them at all. Give these people no red cents. They don't like you. They hate your existence. I don't care what you look like. They hate you. Don't support them. Just go find another way to observe the show.
Yeah, they think you're some sort of animal that they
Right,
milk
like-
cash out of.
That's right.
Tolerance is extinction. Like
Yeah.
the like it's odd to relate what happened with his firing to the show, It's super interesting, and I do know that season 2, he actually did write most of season 2, and they have said that they will respect his scripts and will keep it in.
I'm looking
very
forward to
glad
this. We
about
might get a second season of good content. It'll be like The Witcher, boys. We have 2-ish seasons, and then it goes completely down the hill.
Oh no, man.
Except The Witcher was kind of
no,
bad from the
not
start.
again.
Even season 2 kind of threw me. I didn't know.
Yeah, but still. All right, back to chat. Cap takes a lot of S from people. You're right about that, Astro. Cap wouldn't take Rogue throwing his shield lightly. Namor would especially not take it lightly. Okay, so Namor, or as we have to pronounce now because it's Disney Marvel, Namor, he definitely would get pissy about it.
Backwards.
Exactly.
Well, no, that's one thing I noticed. Like, it's literally a thought I had as I was watching that scene. They walk down into like the underground thing under the log cabin, and she's still holding his shield. And I was like, if I saw this out of context, I would be like, what is going on? Like, my man not going to just be like, hey, give my shield back. Like,
I
Then
think
again,
Cap.
like-
Go ahead.
What could Cap really do about that? It's like, oh well, now my shield is all the way. Like, what is he gonna do? Throw a rock at someone who can fly around and crush his skull with their bare hands? Like, I understand that he would probably be kind of upsetty about this situation,
yeah,
but there's
it's
not really
like,
much he can do.
It's not like he's Thor where you can just lift the hand and the shield comes back. The hammer.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I
I'm
think
kinda
it's
shocked
something that. Go ahead, Astro.
that Thor didn't show up in this. Like, we had Hulk, we had Iron Man, we had
Thor
Captain
actually was
America.
there at a funeral.
On Asgard.
Thor was at the
It's
funeral.
silly. They give
My
so
bad.
many cameos.
Sure.
Yes.
Really?
Who else is the guy with blonde hair and the vague beard who's built like a brick shithouse, Astro? Who else could that possibly be?
I mean, it's Marvel Comics. There's
The
probably like a
Assassin's
half
Guild.
dozen. Yeah.
So the Assassin's Guild, is
Pretty sure-
that a guy's name? Is he with Gambit? Like, he was at Gambit's funeral. He's built
Yeah,
like a brick
he's in-
shithouse.
I mean, there's probably legitimately a bunch of people that
It could be, but I would have guessed Thor if you asked me. So
I
while
don't
Astro
know.
looks it up and verifies,
Assassin's Guild. That was the
bet
group
you're
he
the
was
only
with.
person-
okay, so that's the
Indiana.
Assassin's Guild. All right, I thought that was Thor. He looks like Thor to me.
I bet you're the only person who even noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably real comic nerds type shit. But yeah, that's another thing that kind of irritated me. That's another it's a cartoon. You're allowed to put in whoever the fuck you want. You just get no-name voice actors who are all right to voice it. It doesn't cost anything
Yeah,
extra.
line-
You're already
yeah.
animating the show. There's no reason for them to not be able to have a lot of these characters, a lot of these beloved characters, be more than just a cameo. Especially at the very end,
Oh, the end was
when
annoying.
there's a planet
got
destroying
cameo
threat
heavy.
going on. Yeah, well, at the very end, it got cameo heavy when it should have been like, okay, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four are showing up to help you guys because there's an asteroid that's going to wipe out all life on Earth.
Even if they didn't go, not just that. There's like 4 apocalypses happening at once. There's the robots who are going to kill everybody. Then there's the magnetosphere has been turned off. Then there's an asteroid coming down. Then the UN just launching nukes hoping to solve the problem. Guys, other people should be doing, at the very least, we should have money shots of like, you cut to, I don't know, like, Africa, and you see the Wakandans fighting a couple of those guys. Because we saw that once for a half a second. All you gotta do is that. It's just like them, Spider-Man webbing up a nuke or something. Just cut to them so people can understand that, oh yeah, the heroes are doing stuff just off screen. Don't worry, kids. They're over there in their corner doing in the corner stuff where they can be safe.
You know what's the funniest part is I think the guy that did the most was a Silver Samurai who literally just looked at it.
Yeah.
Stood on the roof
He was like,
twice.
oh man, this is bad.
Why was he
This is going to affect the trout
Oh
population.
man, what's going
This
on?
will
over there?
negatively affect fishing season.
Yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
I guess no more Kyoto
Oh,
Skyline,
what I found
right?
interesting?
Go
Is
ahead,
that
Astro.
Psylocke was one of the cameos at the end with Alpha Flight.
I did notice her.
That's
Psylocke,
the Canadian.
she also was morph turned into Psylocke during the UN defense.
Yep, I imagine, and like she was actually part of the X-Men during the 90s. So maybe they're gonna have her join Forge's team.
Maybe.
Like what do you think is gonna happen with Forge and Bishop?
Bro, I got no fucking
My guess
clue.
is they're-
I have very
Hopefully-
passing knowledge of comics. I cannot tell you that. Astro, this is, by the way, Chat, I need you all to join my server, join Astro's server, go to his YouTube channel, bully him. I need people to review comics so I don't have to read them. Bully him hard.
You got a job to do, buddy.
Yes. I'm tired of Linkara being the only person I can go to for comic things. I hate Linkara. He's a jerk.
Yeah, bro, my guess is that they're going to make X-Force. That Forge will be
he's talking. I would love to know what X-Force is. If only there were some comics he could review.
I don't know. I don't have any idea what the fuck X-Force is.
Yeah, me either.
I feel like it's some derivative of X-Men.
That sounds like a Pornhub parody.
It's
really
like a
does.
new generation of X-Men. It's like a,
Yep. All right. So let's get back to chat real quick because we're only a half hour behind where they were. Nightcrawler's Rel Witten. Yes, he's the best because, like we said earlier, he's all in character. Nightcrawler's correct about everything. I don't know about everything, Rooney. He's correct about a lot of stuff. He look at his love life. He tends to pull some pretty bad chicks. Let's just say.
hey, yo.
Let's see. You said it for 97. Where are we? I got the chat jumped. This is where they talk about they're both adults. They're both adults. That Magneto's old enough to be her grandpa. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Technically speaking, with the shifting timeline, Magneto could have birthed Mystique, and Mystique could have birthed Rogue. But because we don't have anybody's ages, we can't tell what's going on here.
I have a goofy.
Possible deniability.
Yeah, and Magneto does age differently during his mutation, Alex. You were right about that. But regardless of how he physically ages, the number's still important. It's still kind of weird. We just don't know.
Oh, I actually have a fun comic book fun fact about how he got back to U for stage. So, like a Defenders comic, which is a lower tier Avengers, with teams of Hulk and Doctor Strange, Magneto and his acolytes were turned into babies. And a little bit later in the issue, when they reversed it, they reverted all of them back to their prime selves when they were at their most strength. It's just a fun fact I want to get out there.
Like in Sky High.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
Exactly.
not to be like, blatantly obvious, but we see Mr. Sinister, who has like mutant injections or whatever, organ donors that he's dealt with in the past. When he gets blasted at the end, we see him age right until like 300 years old. So why wouldn't it be possible as a concept for mutants to just not age as quickly as regular people?
Wolverine has that.
They could both be geezers, as far as I know. I don't know what Rogue is from.
Well, the reason, so specifically on that, which, by the way, that also gives us the best morph line where he turns into the current fucked up Mr. Sinister, says, looks the same to me. Just very good dig. Again, somebody on the show knows how to write.
That's one thing I like. Did they just let him just run away crying? Like, they didn't arrest him?
Bro, for real. This dude is like the most evil They literally call him the most evil person in history, which questionable. But
I think Magneto has another contender in his mind, but continue.
Yeah, and then they're just like, well, we aged him, so we could just let him go. Surely nothing bad will happen in the future like this.
We hurt his self-esteem. It's good enough.
Yeah, like why not incinerate that guy from the inside with your Phoenix powers, Gene?
Yeah.
It's just one thing because I don't know, because they ended up getting blasted into the past and the future, and I'm like, well, what happened, in the present day? What did I just watch?
Yeah. What the hell are my eyes reporting to me right now?
Don't worry. I'm sure it'll all be perfectly explained next season. All right, so Legacy says, I like how they gave Storm a classic black costume with long hair in the show. So I actually absolutely hate this because it's stupid. What happens is, and I'll explain, you're going to agree with me completely. She's flying. She's been depowered. So Storm goes through her arc of not having powers, and she's got to fight the adversary. Which, by the way, awesome design for a demon. I think the adversary is one of the cooler designs that the show has pulled for us.
It's creepy. I like it.
Sure.
Very creepy. The owl aspects just missed very well. I hated it and loved it.
It feels like and like the animation, the visuals, excellent. Like an easy 2 points on a scale out of 10 just for how good it looked.
Yes.
It felt like kind of they were taking inspiration from with those like freaky demon villain type things. It felt like they were taking inspiration from like kind of modern anime shows. It's just something I know.
Oh, 100%.
I think it's a good idea to take it.
Are those glow effects?
Oh, they were great, dude.
So much. Especially considering that Jim Lee was inspired by anime and stuff like that as well. It was like the 90s artist with the highest selling comic book of all time, which was X-Men.
Yeah. Never getting those numbers again. Hot Disney. You screwed it all up. Anyway, so the reason I hate it is she's fighting the adversary. She's in just like a jeans and t-shirt stuff. And as she realizes she's got her power back, she begins like flying around and she gets pulling the storm back and she can feel the wind again. And she just flies into the sky and her clothes fall off. And at the first I was sitting there like, oh no, my dad's going to walk in now. And then it turns into this black outfit. Like, was she wearing that underneath? Where did this come from? And then she grows her own headband out of nothing. I'm like, what is this? Like, where did this come from?
She's just doing hot girl shit. I don't know what you're so like upset about. Like,
I'm not upset about it. I was just confused. Like, how did this happen? Where did your clothing come from? Can you summon clothes? That's a really cool secondary power you have in Storm. I get you're a goddess because you can control nature, but I'm pretty sure summoning clothing is also a really cool power.
Hey, she can summon clothing if it's like really sexy, mildly bondage gear clothing, which I'm kind of into. So I'm willing to give it a pass just on that. Like,
Alex Gomez, if I could gift you a membership, I would for that comment. Magneto's magnetism includes being a chick magnet. 10 out of 10 comment. Hey, join the server and I'll give you a noble roll for a week. I'll do the paid roll for a week if you want, buddy. The shit Magneto pulled is like Moonlight's constellation shit all over again. No, we're not going to get into that shit, all right, man? We'll get to the fucking asteroid later. We're catching up on chat first. All right, people enjoyed Alex's comment. Morph is like a scroll, whereas the powers are not full peak of their power. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the scrolls. Those have already been ruined recently. This is the problem with using racial allegories. Oh, yeah. Like, you can see the X-Men aren't a specific minority. They are the minority. Whatever the minority group at the time is. Homosexuals, kids who are put down upon, different races, whatever you want to see it as, that's who you're supposed to be. That's the benefit of them. The difference, though, is the X-Men are also demonstrably more powerful. Like what is that garbage comic that everybody that was talking about that? Astro, you know who he is. The guy with the fake, who just some guy calls Fake Holiday. The comic where everybody's black people and they all have superpowers, but they were still somehow enslaved.
Oh,
it's not Radiant.
That's like, if I remember right, it might be called like White or something like that.
Yeah, it's like White or Black or something. You get a kick out of that.
With that, I do feel like the X-Men are best when they use the allegory at the most crucial moment and not all the time.
Yes.
Which is actually something that this show actually does.
Yep.
They actually space it out.
Oh, yeah. Because the X-Men really are best when they're a family interfighting with each other. That's the part of the X-Men you want to see. And the reason they have such good drama is because not only they're fighting with each other, but they're fighting against society. That is the perfect way to deal with these allegories and to show people how you can actually go on with it.
Yeah, okay. Otherwise, if Magneto would just agree with Charles.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't have so much against people if it wasn't like they were being antagonistic towards, his own people, as he likes to reference.
It's the Black Rooney rambling about the wing guy again. Still doesn't give me a name. Thanks, Rooney. Very helpful. Yeah, AGB, they wouldn't be brave enough to do anything like that. And Spider-Man 98, that's
Rooney, if you give us
leave Spider-Man, leave it alone. Leave Spider-Man alone. Do not bring it back.
Yeah. Nightcrawler's fight with Wolverine and Sentinels is better than Zoro's fight in One Piece. Don't at you. All right, everybody, you know who to go kill Black Rooney now. Go ahead, have fun. I love Zoro. Zoro's fantastic. I love the scene where he gets like 9 swords because he holds 3 in his mouth and stuff. Anime is absurd and I love it. Just, you have to go watch it with that. Pirating is a moral obligation. Yeah. If I owe nothing, then piracy isn't a crime. I agree. Let's see. X-Men Kill Squad. That's cool. Yeah, I like that, Alex. Linkara is proof that knowledge does not always equate to application. So true, fam. So true. All right, we're almost caught up on chat, boys. Is the adversary just Satan? No. Satan is definitely something else. It's a Native American spirit, if I recall, right, Astro?
Also, Satan is actually kind of a thing.
Indeed.
So,
yeah, Mephisto is here. Mephisto's involved in the best Spider-Man story ever. Right, Astro?
Shut up. Shut up. No.
The best choice they ever made was Spidey. Oh my gosh. I don't think it's called Black USA Legacy. Yeah, it's the guy's name is Kwanzaa something. Again, like I said,
Fine for you. If you want me to just, I'll mute
yeah,
myself.
he kickstarted it, and he only released like 3 issues. And like I
swear
said,
know. This is one
Just
of
Some
those,
Guy calls him Fake Holiday, which is so funny. I like Just Some Guy. Some of his takes are a little bit off, especially when he gets to like his politics. But like I really like his comic breakdowns. He is very intelligent as a guy, and it's fascinating to watch. Like an actual fan break stuff down. Like I said, I'm tired of Linkara, who just preaches at me the whole time and complains about like whatever's going on. Whereas Just Some Guy, usually when he breaks down a comic in a way, he actually has good criticisms, and he talks about the art, and he talks about the directions, and it's great.
Oh, never mind. I was thinking of someone else.
Yeah, it's Black. It's just called Black. Yeah, here it goes.
Oh,
Astro
yeah,
found it.
nah.
Yeah, his name is Kwanzaa. I'm not even going to try the last name.
That's
Yeah, why
just
the
awful
sequel?
to search up. Like, bro, that the search engine optimization with that name is a nightmare. Like, bro, do you know how much you're gonna get if you just type in Black Comic? Like that is.
Oh,
not
it's
narrowed
Black,
down
comma
at all.
Kwanzaa. Yeah, you're not going to get very much. Oh. Okay, so Black Rooney,
That's
I
big.
can't answer that question here. It's on the screen if you want to read it. I'm not touching that. We can't talk about it. I'm sorry, Rooney.
Here.
I don't know who this is. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm looking through search.
Let's see. Actually, let me see if I can
I
actually
don't
answer
I
that
don't
question.
recognize any of this artwork.
Because I'm pretty sure they're actually because those are the twins with the X-Men.
Oh,
None of
About what Rooney's talking about. The Leshier twins? If I'm no, sorry, wrong thing popped up.
wait.
That
Are there
was
actual
Magneto, sorry,
German X-Men? That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm sure
they're
Magneto thinks they're great.
twins.
The irony being that Magneto himself is genocidal.
He
Oh.
really kind of do be.
Oh, Magneto is one of those characters who's perfectly written.
Oh yes, the Von Strucker twins. That's right.
The
Not
Von
the-
Strucker twins.
Not the
Great name.
Bobcroft. What do they do, Astro? What's their
So
their
Alex,
thing?
hang on. I want to talk to him. So
They're
for Rooney,
actually- they're
he
like
got his
the
name from
children
Radiant Black.
of the creator of Hydra.
They purge minorities.
Really, they created Hydra. That's awesome. I thought Red Skull made Hydra, or is he just like a dude in it?
I think he maybe he inspired Hydra. I don't know if he was actually
Gotcha.
there.
I thought the funny mustache
But
man.
he was
inspired
the
Hydra.
founder in the comics.
Okay.
But they simplified things in the movies because the history of Hydra in comics is insanely long.
Yeah, makes
Like, it's
sense.
about as complicated as Wolverine's backstory.
Yeah, write an alternate history Marvel comic about what if Hydra didn't happen.
Oh, here's a good one for you, Pops. Write an alternate history comic where Hydra formed from the bad guys this time.
Ooh.
Oh my.
You know.
No. Man. All right, so let's get back to the show. We've caught up with chat. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up with the show? Because there's a lot I enjoyed about this show.
Oh, bro,
I would
there's a lot.
say,
Let's see.
Astro, go ahead.
Gambit. Let's
Yeah,
talk about Gambit.
Let's talk
Oh,
about
boy.
Gambit's existence in the show is to die.
Yeah.
And I guess he brought up at an after credit scene to become
Yeah.
a horseman.
I think it functions as far as like it's relevant to the way that Rogue develops and the way that she acts. But yeah, I feel like he didn't have the same level of like relevancy just as a figure within the show. You know what I mean? It's kind of like he's just kind of there to talk in third person with a goofy accent, and then he dies, and it's like, oh, this affects Rogue. Now,
Yeah, he
pay
definitely
attention.
felt more like a plot point. To all you feminists out there,
Yeah.
if you want to say a character was fridged, I'd say Gambit was possibly fridged. I wouldn't, but you would if this was a chick.
Possibly.
If
do
Gambit was a
think-
girl and Rogue was a boy, they'd say she was fridged. But
yeah, kind of just murdered just for the emotional
plot.
impact. Yeah.
I still think
goddamn,
Gambit had a
final
full
word
character.
cool.
Well, I think
Not
Gambit
that-
actually was a full character still. I think he had enough impact on other people. The way he interacted with Jubilee, he sets Jubilee's journey up as well like kind of encouraging her to go out and be more like authoritative and pushing with Sunspot, as we find out later. He does do other stuff in the show, and he's definitely beloved, and his funeral impacts everybody. But like, man, like he just didn't get to do much. I wanted more Gambit. It was gone way too quick, but like you said, they had to do it.
Yeah, it works within the world of
that
the
cast
story,
is
but,
bloated
yeah.
to all hell.
Oh, it really is.
Like
I feel
was,
bad for Morph, because Morph didn't get to do stuff.
bro,
You know-
Morph got 5 minutes in this show.
Yeah, Morph. I like Morph, but if you removed
5
Morph, he
minutes.
wouldn't change much. It's very unfortunate.
He's 90% cameo, 5% gay, 5% depression.
Yeah, that's another thing. Those of you who are worried
No,
that this show is super woke, yeah, they mentioned Morph being non-binary once. I know there's a whole big thing they're pushing about it. This is why I say to people with outrage baiting. They're trying to get you mad at the show because they think it's going to help them in the numbers, because it makes them look good on Twitter. And as we know, Twitter is a cesspool that bots just endlessly retweet each other for political takes. It's the Chinese are trying to get us to hate each other by retweeting these things. So just don't fall for it. Come on, if you want to ignore the show, that's fine. But like, it's so frustrating that they do this crap.
And
blatant
also,
obvious.
note with Morph,
The
is
other
that
thing
the
with
Morph
Morph-
from the 90s and the Morph post 2000s is very different. Since this Morph is far more based on the Exiles run from 2001 going forward. Because in Exiles, he became famous and popular because he was funny.
I feel like that's kind of how he's characterized. Like, obviously, as a dude who can do what he does, you would be like, why doesn't he just turn into some all powerful thing and destroy everyone?
Yeah,
But at the same time, his kind of mentality is established as somebody who's not inclined to do something like that. Like, part of his characterization and why he helps move the plot along is that he's like Wolverine's drinking buddy who helps him get over stuff and makes little jokes and quips with him and keeps him in a good mood. But yeah, when you include a character who can do the things that he does, it's always a pain in the ass to try and make it make sense.
So I think Morph is in this show to replace Gambit because they don't have another comic relief character. That's why he's turned into, like you said, the 2000s Morph Astro. Because they killed their funny guy. You need a funny guy.
They do need a funny guy. I guess Beast semi-fills that role, but he's too smart to be the funny guy.
He's too wordy. He's not quippy enough.
Yeah.
Like
he's written like you write he's written like Spider-Man.
Moments.
Go ahead, Pops.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Beast, he has funny moments, but like he's not like making jokes. Like that scene where they're in like the nightmare world and he clicks on the elevator and it opens up and there's a giant monster and he goes, I think we've perhaps chosen the wrong floor. Like, that's a funny moment. But like he's not making a joke, he's just saying what he sees.
Yeah, he's got observational humor, which is great.
That is true.
Again, this goes
that character.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying earlier.
What do you guys think?
One second, sir. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about all the jokes being in character. That's why they feel so good. Unlike any other crap written recently, I liked all the jokes. There wasn't really a joke. Some of them didn't hit. I'm not going to say they were all bangers, laugh out loud funny. But there was never a joke where I'm like, oh my God, I hate you all for existing. Which happens all the time when I'm watching modern things. Even Fallout, which I think I may have liked Fallout more than this. I hated so many jokes in Fallout. Easily hated so many jokes. I'm like, oh my God, kill me now. This show didn't. I never had a moment where I just hated everybody involved and wanted to die. There was no Maximus in this show. So,
let's see. And on that, what do you guys think of Bishop's role in this show? Because Bishop's role was to transport a baby throughout time, and he fails at transporting the baby throughout the. I said Bishop.
I think it's one of those things where they failed at kind of establish who he was before the universe even kind of existed, because like we learn kind of through blatant dialogue exposition that he's a time traveler, right? And like we don't know who he is. If I'm new to this show and I'm not familiar with the X-Men, I'm not going to know anything about this. Like, he's there in the modern day. Like, what happened? What can he do? What is he talking about? I feel like they did a sloppy job with that.
Yeah, they definitely
he did not do much.
Like, yeah, he was just yet another plot device in the form of a character. That's all.
True.
Like,
He was
Yeah,
there for
we're
like
supposed
one
to
episode, and then he disappeared. And then we kept seeing, "Where's Bishop? Where's Bishop? Where's Bishop?" And then he shows up at the very end. He's like, "Hello, Forge. And it's I, Bishop." Like that's it.
Are we some kind of X-Men?
Exactly.
That's why it's so all over the place with like, it's all right. Who's gonna like this show? Who's gonna not like it? Who's gonna not get it? It's weird because I understand who that was and I understand the history behind him and the role that he plays. But like the average regular listener or viewer, whatever you want to call it, that just
You
goes,
know what?
"Oh,
They're
it's
not
an
gonna get
X-Men."
it.
X-Men, yeah,
He's
Bishop
cool.
wasn't in. He wasn't in any of the movies until Days of Future Past, right? And by then, people were checked out.
So, so on that, I did have a couple cool notes that I wanted to take. As I took some, just a few during the show because I was hoping to give some specific points of praise and criticism. The first one is the very, very opening scene of the show. All the racists are in the skate park, the hip skate party, but I really like how the sign's burnt out. So it says H blank 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 ATE party. I like that it's called a hate party. That's fun. Like, it's just a background detail. I'm so glad no character calls like attention to it. But I just think it's really funny that the racist headquarters are the hate party. That's just, I don't know. It made me chuckle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, every summer when
having
the weather's
fun.
nice, I go out to the hate park.
Here's another one. So this is a moment where when you're looking at as an author, as a fellow creative, how smart a creative is. So during the scene where Wolverine is going to the hospital and Magneto is dealing with the UN, he makes some things to defend them from the racists that are attacking them. He takes bits of metal from the United Nations, like logo and their computers, and makes these swords, and he uses the swords to make barriers to block them. The swords he makes are hyper-specific. They are specifically the iconic imagery that you see in Greek art for what the Sword of Damocles looks like. That is so poignant. Because
Is that so? Is that really like
it
they
really
actually-
is.
Because
Huh.
he did, he built a cage out of swords. I would have never known. I just said,
Yeah, the style is the Sword of Damocles. If you see a sword in that style, that's the imagery it's harkening back to. Because that's on a lot of the ancient Greek pots, the way the Sword of Damocles is shaped. It is awesome because those of you who don't know the Sword of Damocles, the story basically boils down to there's this awesome sword that will protect and take care of everybody in the kingdom, but it hangs over the king's head. And it's hanging there by a thread. And if the king screws up, it'll just fall and take his head straight off. And that is what Magneto uses to defend them. The Sword of Damocles. Look, there's so much themes and symbology there. That is one of those moments where you look at it as a fellow creative. You're like, you, Mr. Creative, you've read a book before. You know what's going on. You actually have something worth talking to. Because you're putting symbology and themes into your story in a way that just completely changes it. It goes from, okay, cool, Magneto made some spikes to, he creates the swords above the UN. He creates several swords of Damocles above the UN, and then he uses them. He is the sword of Damocles. It's reinforcing, like what I said earlier, when he was talking about, how he's going to be let down by the people who are in the United Nations. It's all reinforcing that theme. It's so cool to look at a show and be like, oh my god, somebody understands things. Somebody's read another story. Clearly, DeMaio once read ancient Greek philosophy and looked at some of the mythologies there and said, oh, this is a story I need to keep in my back pocket for later. The theme, the symbology, and just the fact that it's there has so much going on. And it's nice to be able to look at it and be like, wow, damn, it feels good.
To cap that scene off,
Visual
and then,
storytelling is awesome.
Instead of having Storm do something like saying, Magneto, get down, or shocking the Executioner, or blowing him over with a stiff wind, she instead decides to eat a bullet. Instead of doing anything reasonable in that situation, like a combat-trained person would do, she's like, "Oh, let me just eat this fucking bullet. I'm sure it'll be fine." Also, Magneto is looking straight at this guy. He's literally looking straight at him. Magneto, why don't you go down? Why don't you drop to a knee at least so you're in cover? Bro,
He doesn't
what are
know
you
what kind of,
fucking doing?
Or take a chair and put it in front of you.
They've never seen that type of weapon before. Like, he doesn't know what's coming.
All right, but that doesn't matter. Like,
True.
or you're just like, oh man, well, I can block bullets, therefore there's nothing in the world that can harm me. I'm fucking Magneto. Like, that's just stupid. It's just stupid.
Fixed it. All you had to do was have the executioner raise his gun and Magneto smirk and say, "A bullet, really?" And then when he fires it, then Storm gets out of the way. That would have been great because that fixes all the problems right there. Because now you have Magneto thinking it's just going to be a bullet. So that's why Magneto doesn't dodge. But Storm was in the lobby a minute ago, so she knows it's an energy blast. That's why she goes in there to stop it. It's way better. Because again, all it is a single line and fix. This is why you want to critique your work, because that single line of Magneto saying "a bullet" really shows his cockiness, his arrogance, and how he thinks he's in control of the situation, and explains why he'd be stupid enough to let what happens happen. And then why Storm has to, basically dive at him. Yeah, she probably should have tried to push the bullet out of the way maybe with her powers, or shoot the executioner over. I'll grant you all that, but at least it's better that Magneto's out in cover. Again, single lines. This is why you got to redraft your work and critique the hell out of your stuff, guys. You fix that entire scene, which everything surrounding it is so good, and you have just little moments like that to just drop off a cliff. Frustrating. Whole show's like this, by the way. The whole damn show is like this. Every time they
For
start
real.
doing something cool, is just an idiot plot comes in or an idiot device happens. I'm like, you were there. What the hell, man? You had it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great
like this-
moments mixed with extremely stupid moments.
The setups are there. Sometimes the
Mhm.
execution is just falling off.
The executioner is falling.
Also, I really like this. I want another critique. When Storm gets her powers back, she goes flying around the desert for like 5 or 10 minutes, which, as they put in there, Storm, it's nice you have your powers back, but Forge has demon cancer. You might want to help him a little bit.
Yeah, bro is dying. Bro is moments away from death, and you're like fucking singing in all the colors of the wind. Like, come on.
She got
What
shot
the
in
fuck?
Pocahontas moment.
It's painted colors of the wind.
You know, whatever.
just
I
wanna
don't
state-
watch Disney products.
Oh, not even the
I also
good
just
ones.
want to state that I'm
Not
very happy that Forge got a role in the show.
Yeah,
I like
Forge is a
Forge.
cool
Which is
character.
awesome.
Like Forge.
Forge is a very cool character.
So one, Forge's powers and Bastion's powers seem to be identical. Except that Bastion's powers also do whatever the writer wants them to do at the time, and Forge's powers are significantly less powerful.
Forge's powers and Bastion's powers are identical, except Bastion also has Magneto's powers.
Yeah, and also he can like make a vacuum in his chest for some reason, like that.
Yeah, bro, that last power up for those giant wings and that weird half cyborg look was complete
Yeah.
BS. How
Yeah,
did
like,
he
what's
become
going on?
that? How did that happen?
What is
From
happening?
Cable's
And why-
arm. He took an arm and made a suit of super armor.
Yeah.
With metal, with like not even metal wings. They were like almost like gems.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
that work?
Bro was like, I will become a black man. I am more powerful than you can imagine.
Exactly.
Um,
Just I don't get it. But then like then you have moments where like his face gets melted and beat up, so you have this like zombified look as he's snapping it back in, which is really cool imagery. It's like, dude, this is awesome. But then you have the moment it was like, but how we got here was he just gave Cable the old suck and fuck and left.
yeah, and like, okay, so he grabs Rogue by her neck. So Rogue's neck doesn't have anything. She's not wearing a turtleneck. Like he's touching her skin. Rogue.
Yeah, she should be taking his power.
Yeah, why aren't you taking
I
your
mean, if
gloves
he's
off and
touching
grabbing
with
him?
metal.
But
Wouldn't
the
that
metal
work?
is him.
But that wasn't. No, he did that afterwards. First, he grabbed her. He teleported behind her, grabbed her, and stopped her. And then the machine like extended out of his arm and clasped her around the neck.
Did it? I thought he grabbed her with her bare hand. I just watched this.
No,
I
he did initially.
swear-
He did initially. You're correct.
Yeah.
Or maybe he grabbed, I don't know, the back of
Also,
her booty.
how everybody breathe in
But-
vacuum? It is the X-Men. Do they have the aether? Is that what's going on? Is there just air in space? Why could Jubilee breathe in space?
Yeah, Jubilee's the only one who I look at like, you can't even fly, bitch. How are you breathing here? So maybe Rogue stole somebody's super lung, and maybe Sunspot can do it, sure. Jubilee, really. And not just that, remember, Jubilee flies back. Jubilee re-enters the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get it. Sunspot's carrying her, but how slow is Sunspot going for her to not burn up?
Well, that was one of the questions I had when Magneto was bringing those people up in the air during the trial, but he had a bubble around them, right?
So he didn't go into the fucking atmosphere. He can go 1,000 feet in the air. That's still really high, but like I can see that. I can see him going above the buildings of Manhattan. Sure. You could still feasibly not be out of the atmosphere yet. There are buildings in Dubai twice the size of some of the buildings in Manhattan. I got you. But like, dude, they were very clearly out of atmosphere. Another moment, which I found so frustrating. All of the people who could fly were on the ground after Magneto started lifting the meteor up. Why did they all fly back up? Because the only reason that happened was so they could all get teleported through space and time. Oh.
There's so many times where shit just doesn't make any sense. And you've got the whole roster of the X-Men. You've got a bazillion dudes with all of the superpowers you can think of and more.
And personal drama and cool relationships and all this stuff.
And they aren't using them. Like they just want this solid, steady, specific cast. It's just
they try, but
much,
they only have so much space.
That's pretty much why, though. Why my take on the show is like I enjoyed it, but I know it's not good. You know what I mean?
Again, it's just frustrating because
it does have problems.
Oh, but it does, and that's what's so frustrating because I'm watching it. I'm like, you were so close to greatness. Just, I don't get it. It really feels, like I said, it feels like there was just only one good writer on the staff. Because I know he couldn't write everything. I know he probably gave treatments for everything, but like the very last episode, I guarantee he didn't write most of that. He probably gave a couple lines here and there, but there's no way that he wrote all these things, and there are 4 other writers who are credited. They had to have done something. And at some point, he would have had to acquiesce to their demands and their writing things. And you can just see, it's so upsetting that you can literally see when he's not writing, if this DeMaio's to be the one that we think is writing everything good, see when he's not writing anymore. And I'll even give credit. Maybe one of the other writers is also really good and they're trying. But somebody on that staff sucks and kept inserting their stuff and kept making it ruined. Like, it's weird. Because so many things are so near perfect that I have to believe somebody with talent is here. You know? You don't have this many banger lines and references to like the Sword of Damocles and the ideas of Calypso, and even when they're talking about the ship with Magneto when he's in that bar, that's very reminiscent of what story is it? Oh, I just had a brain fart. It's a famous story about.
Who wrote it? What happened?
It's a mythological story. It's 2 men at the end of the world, and the world keeps resetting. So like that's another it's another thing where. There's so much going on there that in symbology, I'm looking at it like, I know something's here. There's somebody here knows what they're doing, and it's awesome. But then there's just scenes where it's just, like Rogue claps super hard and almost kills Bastion, but then he just grabs her and smacks her around a little bit.
In a vacuum.
In a vacuum. That's a
shockwave propagates in a vacuum.
I mean,
and if she can clap that hard, all I'm going to say is no wonder they cut down her butt cheeks.
Yeah, for real. Imagine those cheeks.
Yeah. You can't excuse anything like that. That was one of the biggest controversies of the year. Like, that's going to live on in my mind.
That controversy is so stupid. I'm going to be honest. Rogue was very sufficiently caked up in the show. All the ladies were very enjoyable to watch, as were all the dudes. There's not a single moment where I was looking at the people and like, oh my god, this thing's disgusting. How dare you ruin everything? Everybody was attractive. Everybody looked how they were supposed to. And the thing is, that one scene, why do you think, Mr. Viewer at home, whenever you see people comparing, it's always the single scene where Rogue's laying down on her butt? Why is there not a single other scene from the original X-Men show where Rogue's got a huge butt and then for some reason they only show that one single frame? Maybe maybe it's because she didn't have a huge butt in the original series. There was just that one scene where they gave her a dump truck for some reason. Because 90s animation was 50% screw it, I hope the Koreans understood my directions.
I'll have to watch the original series now. I got to compare.
You know, our other podcast host, who's definitely supposed to be here, and we definitely love him and not going to hit him later with a brick, Dez, is actually going through the whole thing right now. So in 6 months, when he gets around to rejoining the podcast, he'll be able to tell us all about it. And at that point, we'll be able to tell him, I'm sorry, dude, but we've already switched our brains out for Elon Musk's cyber minds. We've evolved past
Hell
you.
yeah.
That was like 3 things ago. What are you talking about? Like, it's in the past, bro. That
Exactly.
shit came in.
I did want to call out this comment that Legacy made about 10 minutes ago, though. Forge's powers to make things like he's the master builder from the Lego movie. I really like that. That's a very cute comment, Legacy. Thank you. It's true, though.
Legacy rules. Shout out to Legacy.
Yeah. You know what? And he made a joke comment about an hour ago. I haven't forgotten about it. I promise you, Legacy, one of these days, we're going to have an entire podcast dedicated to talking about the world building you've done in your setting and, you know, going over and helping you with it. I think it'll be a very fun podcast. We'll either show people all the cool stuff that you've got building and the cool stuff in your world.
It is fun. And bro is legitimately like an artist. Like, sometimes I'll come in just fill in the VC and he's streaming him drawing like the most, like, you know, it's random, but it's like the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world. Like, he drew the Hulk the other day. I think he was drawing some other superheroes and everything. He's talented.
Okay, so hang on a sec. I want to respond to a ping that I got in another server from one of our friends, Poogitar. I like him. He makes very good videos. Go watch them. He made one of this came up very recently. Poor criticism so far. They think it's rust. It is incredibly rust. This show moves at the speed of a crackhead on grease, dude. They resolve plot lines. Well, hang on, like, you know, he just is confused. And I'm telling you, like, so I think the show is still very good. If it slowed down and breathed a little bit, you would very, very, very much go about and, like, understand the plot better. There's several scenes. I even cited the one where Magneto lets the guys down, where that scene didn't have any moment to breathe. The only time we ever get things to breathe is, that I can recall, is when, at the very, very end, when what's his face, Apocalypse shows up, there's a pause, which lets you know he's important for some reason. And at the very part where Gambit dies, we have a small pause there. Those are the only moments where I ever thought we had a chance to breathe. Like I said, they completely rush past the entire Madeline Pryor storyline. They rush past the whole, you know, Scott has a kid, and we're getting it like offhandedly. That's a season's worth of content of Scott trying to figure out, who do I love? It's, you know, I feel like I missed 3 episodes, and I watched all of them this week in order. I feel like I just missed chunks of TV because it's just so on.
They like adapt one event per episode, like one crossover event per episode, more or less.
Yeah,
Like
it's one major comic arc per episode.
Fatal Attraction, Operation Zero Tolerance. So they gotta stop mentioning Operation Zero Tolerance at the end. Like, they almost kind of dropped it. Like, that was kind of weird.
Here's another thing. You know, Morph died in the OG show and Mr. Sinister brought him back. You think that the two of them would have had any interaction about that? And all we get is Morph making fun of Mr. Sinister at the end. There's not a single moment where they talk about that. That's important plot stuff because it's rushed. Then Mr. Sinister has to run off screen so we can deal with him later because the characters don't have any moments to deal with them. That's, you know, that's why I was saying that it's very rushed, and the show very much so needed to decompress and slow down because it's absurd how fast it moves through some of its plot lines. And then we had, like mentioned earlier, we have the only episode that I say is paced correctly, ironically, is Motendo. That's paced fine. It goes through the beats. I know what's going on, and I get it. That's almost a filler episode, though.
It really is. Okay, so here's a question about this filler episode. So there's a fucking sapient program inside of this Motendo box, and at the end, she is just destroyed. Imagine watching an older version of yourself perish in front of you, and then just being like, la-di-da, oh, whatever, and just going on. What the fuck? What did we just see?
Yeah, that's a cosmic horror level event. 20 zone episodes are written about this shit.
Yeah.
Not just
Bro,
remember
the X-Men
this.
go through a Twilight Zone event every issue.
Oh, you don't get it, man.
Like
Because like
cloning,
they really do. But like this frustrates me
oops,
so much
I
because
banged
I think the Nintendo thing's unique
my
to the
wife's
show, right,
clone.
Astro? Oops, sorry.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Almost, more or less, in spirit. Like,
yeah. I know that the
the
character
bad guy
isn't.
Mojo's appeared.
Yeah, I know the character isn't, but specifically the Motendo arc, that one thing, that's horrific because it's you, the chick. It's not just her. It's her, but better. She's done everything. She understands what's going on. This character literally has all your memories and played through them for 100 years or some shit. She can do superpowers that later on Jubilee figures out because she watched her older, I guess, digital clone of herself do it. Like
Yeah.
you had an entire character there that you just killed off screen. I'm sorry. If the character, she should have some sort of mourning for this. It's literally a version of you that died.
This is
It's
an accurate version of your future self that you just witnessed.
yeah.
Like, at the very least, you should be like, well, this is interesting. Like, I don't know, there should be some thought
You
about
don't,
that.
you don't want to take the cartridge to Beast and be like, "Hey, Beast, guess what just happened to us? By the way, who put this in my room?"
Yeah, yeah. How did that get there?
How did it get there?
Okay, and that's the whole fucking show. Look,
You wouldn't go to the next room and be like, "Yo, did you leave your Nintendo over here?"
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a fun show. It is not a good show. That's
And again, I feel like
my
if they,
rating at the end of the day.
well, and I feel like if they had decompressed the story a little bit more, you could have fixed these problems. It's because they had to rush past it. Because there's not a scene where she gets to go talk to them. Because there's not a moment where you can decompress and think, wow, that was an older version of myself. Maybe I should take advice from her of what to do or what not to do. You think Jubilee wouldn't like to have an AI version of herself who's experienced her? Sure, the AI probably won't be able to do things, and it's very limited because it's just a testing program. But how cool would it be to upload that Jubilee to the danger room? They call it, Astro?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The holodeck.
Yep.
Upload her to the holodeck
No,
and let her be your training buddy. How cool is that? I
Or
can
something.
train with a clone future of myself, but this is the version of myself who basically never grew up, so they're always cool and radical. Wow, perfect.
Yeah, new character.
They could have made like.
Well, they didn't. Again, with how rushed it was, they couldn't have made more scenes about the danger room besides the fact that it existed. It existed.
That's what I'm saying. This is the
It
problem
was
when
like
you rush the
they only
story.
had. It's mentioned like 3 times the whole time, and you only see it once.
And the thing is, like, they could have made the first episode into a whole season. Legitimately, they could have made the whole episode, the first episode with Gene Pryor showing up and the pregnancy and the replacement of the clone. That could have been a whole season of this length, and it's compressed so far. And it's just disappointing because you can see the bones of something that could have been really, really, really great. And instead, we got something that was really, really, really rushed. And that's just kind of sad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential.
I'm sorry that when I peak, my audio gets silenced. I can't fix that. It's just, I get too excited and my microphone's like, bro, shut up. I also do want to say, Blackaroonie, Madeline over Jean because she's a baddie. They're the same character, you dingus. They're clones.
They're the same exact person.
Unless Astro's going to correct me, this is the same person. Like, you can't say one's a baddie. They dress the same.
Yeah,
they're clones.
They're both hot redheads. What else do you want?
Yeah, Scott really lucked out. He's in love with 2 hot redheads. Like,
yeah.
Man's living the dream.
One died in the 5th episode.
You know what? That's side note. I'm sorry.
Convoluted.
Yeah, besides her just dying kind of off screen, what bullshit is this? Imagine this from fucking Wolverine's perspective. He's in love with her. He loves Jean, and all of a sudden a hot clone of her shows up. There's literally 2 of her now, and he can't date her. She's got to go be the senator of Mutantlandia.
Well, he did say at one point, "I got to go see about a redhead. Don't care which one." Like, what did he say? That was a hard line.
Did go hard, but I think he just went to the bar. Fuck some random redhead at the bar. Dying breed, by the way.
Yeah, my bad.
So sad. So sad.
Yeah, it's just, oh my god. No battle is close choice. Rooney, they're the same person. They wear the same
No,
outfits.
no. He's got a point. No, he's got a point. Fucking Goblin Queen's outfit. Oh,
That's fair.
I'm
That's
surprised
fair.
they allowed that in a Disney.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll give you the Goblin Queen.
The Goblin Queen, bro.
Goblin Queen. Like,
You
bro,
know how I feel
I wonder
about
how
I know,
people
she's
thought
Goblin.
about that, about her name.
Oh,
Like,
man. I can't
imagine
wait.
People were confused about why she was called Goblin Queen.
Yeah, they don't explain
there are,
that.
like-
She just
That's
chooses.
There are
true.
no goblins in that show. There are 0 goblins.
Are there goblins
are the
in the
goblins?
X-Men normally?
Oh,
There's a-
no, but like she, because in the
Oh,
comics,
okay.
she got her powers from hell.
Oh,
So she got hell demon spawn that were goblins.
is Mr. Sinister a little bit from hell? Maybe.
No.
No, Sinister was a regular dude.
Okay. Well, whatever. None of it
He
makes
knew
sense.
Mangala.
Oh yeah, he did. He was like, Mengele was a little bitch, but if he had rimmed me a little bit more, I could have taught him what's for.
Angela? You mean Lamela? Got
Ball
him.
baller.
Oh, guys, what did you think was your favorite scene from the show? Because I have a scene that I want to talk about with the scene
Ooh.
of Cable. So Jean and Cyclops do a hologram message to Cable about them
Good
going
scene.
away for a bit, and they don't know where they're going, and that Jean allows Cyclops' powers to go away for just a bit, so that Cable can see his father's eyes for just a bit. And how
Oh, that
Cable
was towards
says
the end.
he heard about all the stories about the X-Men and their famous adventures that pissed him the hell off. Like, bro, that scene was awesome. That is exactly what I want from Cable. That is like awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect character moment.
Well, I can't tell you what my favorite scene was, but my least favorite scene was at the end where it said to be continued. I was like, bro, there's more. Come on, this shit sucks. No, I'm kidding. That was a good scene. That was like right near the end, right?
I'm glad they did do the famous to be continued. Like that's kind of a nice of them to do, in all honesty.
He said Cyclops landing with his own blast. That was pretty tight. I think I already did my favorite scene. It's I think it's
Oh, you know what?
when
My
Magneto's
favorite
in the
scene,
UN.
if
Oh,
you
go ahead,
want me
Pops. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my favorite scene was where the Goblin Queen was sitting on top of the chair at the top of the stairs, and she stood up, and for like a very brief moment, like you could see like the bottom of her underwear, like under her skirt. I think that was probably the best scene.
That was definitely solid for sure. I mean, I was definitely solid
It was
during that
like-
scene.
She was like, "Have I sinned?" Like she said some goofy like biblical shit, and then stood up, and I was like, "Yo, hang on."
God, that scene also weird.
Yeah, it was a good
Man.
scene, bro.
I imagine the animators had some fun with everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And my favorite scene, I think I said it earlier, was Nightcrawler with the 3 blades. Oh, that was
Great scene. Oh, it's
Fucking
another
three
great one.
blade. Yeah.
She said, "I know not what I do."
Yep.
Go on.
That is another
Yeah.
great scene. Like I said
Nightcrawler with
earlier,
3 blades.
yeah, that's a fantastic
Here's
scene.
a question. Magneto can control electric impulses, so why was he not just like, hey, guess what is full of electric impulses? Your brain, get fried, bitch, and then she just dies. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand why Magneto's powers work in some ways and they don't.
When
I'm
you've
just-
got
I'm
a
just
guy,
frustrated.
when you got a guy that can do what he does at that level, like it's impossible to have any scene kind of make sense when you take into account everything. Like Wolverine, it's like why wouldn't he immediately neutralize Wolverine? Like it's his skeleton is metal. Like he can literally just tape him to a tree and have that be that for the rest
Yeah.
of the.
And he
Yeah.
does. He usually does.
Yeah, I know in the comics, kind of like become a meme that he does that every. Like Wolverine will charge at him and he's like, nope.
I mean, with the scene of
Or-
episode 9.
Yeah, you can see why Wolverine's the only one man enough to kill him. That's another thing. I think this is the first time in a while that Wolverine's been in character the whole time. It's so nice.
True.
He gets written like a pussy so much. Oh, I hate Wolverine in so many media. He's just written like a sad boy the whole time. Well, no, he's just
I don't know.
angry. He hates everything. He's a little bastard.
I think it was based on because there was a trend where people didn't know how to write him at all, and he would do shit like that in the comics. Like he would charge at Magneto and curse at him, and it's like, dude, like, don't you have a brain? And I think they just did a total 180 and made him a little too cautious. That's just my take,
Oh, that makes sense. It sounds about right. That sounds like something that would
But
happen.
still, great character. They did a good job with him.
Yeah.
They ruined Wolvie? No, they didn't ruin Wolverine. They wrote him correctly, Mister.
Oh no, they didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't ruin
NNN2
him.
is here.
Talking about the twins.
I have a theory as to who NNN2 is. I'm not going to say, but I believe we all know who this is. So,
oh, that's my guy.
it's your guy. It's your boy. All right. So I think from here, it's a fantastic spot to wrap up this show and move on to the announcements at the end. Remember, everybody, we're reading A Door into Summer by Robert Heinlein. Feel free to swing by, and we have the audiobook. And we're going to talk about it next week. That's the podcast topic.
You'll learn a lot.
You will. If you're worried, the audiobook is 6 hours and 50 minutes. That's not a lot. That's not a lot at all. You could easily get through it.
I mean, you can literally in the back.
The book, it's even faster to read it physically for most of us, so remember that.
Anybody?
And despite being a Heinlein novel, there's only a very small bit of weird sex stuff.
Excellent.
Good. I was about to say, as we wrap up, we got any plugs? You guys making anything new? We're looking forward to.
Kind of. I am going to plug something very, very important. It's nothing I'm doing. Well, kind of. We have a friend. His name is Cinny. He is working on a brand new game. Here we go. Clash of Melodies. It's a rhythm game he's been working on for about a year. And I posted its link into his Indiegogo in the chat. Feel free to fund him. In fact, now that we're done with this stream, I'm probably going to go there and immediately pledge the $50 tier. I believe this will make me the only person who's double $50 pledged. I pledged during the demo, and I'm going to pledge now. He is a very good friend. This the rhythm game he's been working on for a while. It's soft set in my setting of Enos, so if you're curious about, as you watch my show, some of the lore and the ideas I have going on, it's set there. In fact, if you are in my server and wonder why the top guards are called Praetorian Guards and the other moderators are called Lightwalkers, that's because that's what they are in the setting of Enos. And they are mentioned and talked about in the demo for this game, which is free, by the way. You can go to the Indiegogo and try out the demo, and you can see all the animated cutscenes and stuff he's been working on. And if you do the tutorial, you might find out that the little NPC bartender has a familiar accent. So yes, go check it out.
Yes.
Next he worked hard on it, like seriously.
Oh,
I think you played a demo of it, right?
Yep, I streamed the demo in my server not too long ago.
Yep.
And when the full game comes out, I'm going to have people stream it. Also, pester other YouTubers to cover it. Let's get our boy funded so we can make it. In fact, let me open the link and let's see how he's doing. Oh, shoot.
You can tell he worked hard on that, so you really got to give him some credit here. Show him some love. That's our guy.
He's our top G. All right. So, from here, does anybody else have something they want to plug? Let's go with Astro. You first.
Let's see. The YouTube is a pretty good one. I'm working on some stuff right now that I don't want to reveal too yet because I don't want to make some false promises. I know I mentioned the Century One video a lot, but the Century One will release in Imagine June, but I'm going to release something this month, and people, I imagine, are hopefully going to like it. I don't want to say what it is yet. I just recommend subscribing and waiting.
Yeah, go subscribe to Astro's channel, you stupid bitches. Fuck
That's-
you.
He'll report in eventually.
Yeah. As for me, Ed, I just finished another novel a couple nights ago. I'm in the process of editing it, and I'm going to be releasing this one entirely for free on Royal Road, chapter by chapter. It's
Holy
it's
cow.
going to come out. I've actually got two like novels in this series finished. So whenever I'm releasing a new one of the novels, I'll release a chapter every single day for a week. So there'll be 7 chapters out immediately, and then it'll be 3 chapters a week from there on. So it'll be kind of feeding you content in case you like to, have a little something to read every day.
Is this going to be
check out my-
collected and put on Amazon?
Absolute
Yes,
workhorse.
Yeah, so the thing is, once I've got one of the full novels completed on Royal Road, I will be releasing them as a complete novel on Amazon for you to buy.
And how long do you think
so if
that'll
you-
take? How many chapters roughly are we looking at?
So the first in the series is 42 chapters, and the second in the series is 45 chapters. So it's looking like let's see, 7 for the first week, and that'll leave with 35. So about 12 weeks for the first book to be fully out. And then
So,
the second one will be about.
I have to make this announcement now because you ruined it, by the way, by putting it on Royal Road.
Hell
When
yeah.
this book is done, you'll see. I'm going to do a raffle in the server. Anybody who's currently a Discord member or a YouTube member, I will buy one of you a copy of this book, and that'll be what we cover on one of the upcoming reading podcasts when the book is done on Amazon. So get your YouTube memberships now because it's only at 99 cents. You'll get probably about $10 book for free if you do. There's a shot. We only have a
That's a
couple
pretty good
YouTube
deal.
members.
And this
my
boy
books,
can write.
they're
like,
definitely
I've
worth
read-
at least 99 cents.
At least worth 99
Yeah, so
cents.
if you help boost the Discord, which is linked in the description, or are a YouTube channel member here, like I said, when the book is fully released, the following week we're going to do a podcast on it, covering it, talking about it for the next book club, and I will have bought somebody in the server a free member of the book, a free copy of the book. So be sure you've signed up, for the YouTube memberships for that. This promotion, I will ship it internationally if I can. I'm not sure how Amazon works with that.
They are a little bit funky. They'll do
Yeah.
it. They'll do it in Europe. They'll do it in Asia. They don't like a lot of places in the Middle East, and they don't like a lot of places in Africa.
And if for some
it's
reason
not my
you
doing.
can't get the
Just-
book, by the way, just for anybody, if I can't buy it for you, I will get you an Amazon gift card of the equivalent value. I'm not going to cheap out and say, well, we'll do it. So you either get
What
the
a
book
guy.
or cash. That way you could buy it if you can. So.
And I guess last but not least, we have Pops. And Pops doesn't have anything to shill, but he is incredibly handsome.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to show his girlfriend these podcasts one day. Aren't you, Pops?
No,
yeah.
You're
No,
going to show her all of them, and we're going to talk all about how much you love Blood Meridian.
Pops,
She
here's
knows.
a question.
She knows.
Pops.
What's the question?
I know that a lot of charities are really terrible. Is there like an animal charity that's not fucking awful that you can donate to that would be actually good? Do you know?
Well, if I said the one that I work at, I would essentially dox myself.
Well, you could
Well,
have said
I
it's a
mean-
charity that you've worked with in the past,
Yeah, or you could just say you could just have said that the charity without mentioning that you work in it.
Well,
So if you go down to
Kinda
Nathan
deep.
McBride's, Home for Animals, the owner, Nathan McBride, he really likes Blood Meridian, and he definitely donated him $50 right now. He won't spend it on beer and maybe cigars. I promise you. I had to pick a fake name.
Okay, so I guess that one's done. But donate to an animal charity or something. I don't know.
just keep an eye out. It is baby season. You're going to see baby raccoons, baby birds, fledglings, mostly fledglings this time of year. They're pretty much ready to fly on their own after a week. Just leave them alone. You're going to see fawns. Fawns, their parents can leave them. Mama deer can leave a fawn for up to 14 hours at a time while she go finds food. Usually, just leave them alone. They'll be fine. Check the eyes and the ears for ticks and everything. Let's see. What else? Birds' nests. It's illegal to mess with them, so be advised. Besides that, kittens, absolutely call your local police department, non-emergency line, and have them dispatch animal control and find out what the policy is in your town regarding feeding stray cats and wildlife and things like that. And chances are you're going to get them adopted out to a good home. So God bless you.
Yeah,
Keep an eye out for the.
Remember, that's the police department, not the Chinese store.
Oh no.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Don't not your local Chinese restaurant.
Yep, trust me on that. Made that mistake once. It's okay. Mr. Mittens 2 has got a very happy new home.
Yeah.
Mr.
Keep an eye out for geese on the median. They're a pain in the ass, I know. They're not very bright.
Goodness, I hate geese. Geese are awful.
All right. Is that the lot?
Thanks.
I think with that, we're good. So everybody, thank you for showing us the
Excellent.
podcast videos all at once. I'm going to be splitting them up, and if I get it done, I'll be able to release 3 history ofs in a row. So that's why it's taken so long. It's a big project, but there's a lot of interconnected lore here that I'm trying to
cut
untangle.
out the whole time.
Is
or maybe
that-
cutting out.
Excellent.